Hey, everybody, welcome to the WWE podcast and the Monday Night Raw review. Tonight, Michael Gross joins the show to discuss everything that happened on the show that aired last night, October 11th, 2021. So, buckle up. This is a fun ride with Michael Gross. Let's get everything going right after this.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE podcast.
The one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my idol. You're going to acknowledge me.
Okay, Monday Night Raw is in the books for October 11th, 2021. And as I record this, I've got a co-host with me that has not been on the show in a while. It feels like it's been a long time. Too long, it feels like. And Michael Gross, who joins us once again to enlighten us on Monday Night Raw. We'll try to find some good stuff, guys. I can't promise you that we'll be overly positive about this show, but we will make our damnedest best effort to put a good spin on where we can. But first and foremost, we got to welcome back to the co-host chair here, Mr. Michael Gross, the gardener, here to talk about Monday Night Raw. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing fantastic, and I hope you're doing well yourself there, sir.
Yeah, good. Life is good. No sleep, toddler, infant. It's all good.
Yeah, I figure that your eyes are bloodshot and your hair is probably thinning a little bit more day by day. And you know exactly how many ticks are on a clock before that revolution turns around. So
that's right.
Yeah, I know it's got to be difficult, and the smell of milk and the sound of a child crying, but it's all part of the the circle of life. We were all there once. We were all in a bassinet or a crib at one point in our lives. So as much as it can be nerve wracking, without someone taking care of us, we didn't have it. So
that's right. That's right. Yes. No, I'm with you on that. And I think that any parent out there who's, understands and or has, risen a family or is currently in the same position I am. Yeah, it's the hardest and best thing ever. There's no other way to put it. That's exactly what it is. And the days are long, but the years are quick. That's, it's true. So, all right. Well, let's first, I'm going to toss it to you. Are there any shout outs or anything that you'd like to give right at the beginning of the show here?
Well, first of all, I want people to know, in the words of Corey Graves, that tonight you're going to listen to a podcast by a couple of big meaty men who like slapping meat. I think that's the best way that you could describe this show with the two of us on here, considering I'm the gardener and it's all about the veggies in my life. But honestly, which is one of the weirdest things I've ever heard on Monday Night Raw. We all know that was written by a couple of sixth graders sitting on the back seat of the bus, trying not to say it too loud so they don't get kicked off. I would like to throw a couple of shout outs. Just to our usuals, of course, DJ Kuzmo, the most faithful of the faithful. Mark Tedford, who's become a very, very loyal fan. Josh Bear, another loyal fan who's out there listening to the show. I love it. And, it just, the way we evolve and the way we do things and the way I see our Twitter followers grow, and just listening to the mailbag every week. And folks, if you don't listen to the mailbag, you're really doing yourself a disservice. I think it's one of my favorite segments of this show, of this podcast, because I like hearing back from you and hearing where all of you are all over the world. And I want to give a shout out to Miller, who usually writes in every week. And last time I was on the show back in September, he said that he liked it when I was on the show for these reviews. And I just want to say thank you. I personally want to say thank you. And I hope I do you a service this week by you hearing my voice and us having a good time and discussing Raw. And hopefully these big, meaty men slapping each other with meat will make your day brighter. I hope you're smiling out there, Miller. That one's for you.
Yeah, I hope Miller enjoys that. I'm sure we'll be hearing from him before the mailbag that drops tomorrow night. So, Miller, you got 24 hours to respond to that. I'm very interested to hear what his response is. And, of course, everybody else, DJ Kuzmo and everyone that is just been so great and helping us show grow. And absolutely, we're here because of them. And giving everybody a voice is, again, my favorite show of the week, too, is Wednesday nights because it's mailbag night. So I'd encourage anybody listening that wants to vent, if you guys want a platform, if you want somewhere to go where you want to be able to express your opinions or complain or whatever, as long as you keep it PG, do it. Send us an email at realwwepodcast@gmail.com, or you can call us at 518-952-0247, and you'll get 3 minutes, and it'll cut you off at 3 minutes, but you can do so and just go crazy. So very good, very good. Let's jump in, though, to Monday Night Raw. That did have did have some bright spots, but boy, it was very formulaic at times. It was kind of confusing. We had just seemingly the same theme run through the show, that opponents at Crown Jewel can't be tag team partners. And then we had one tag team match with the ladies that got disqualified because the tag team partners couldn't get along. That's a first that I've ever seen. And then another where the tag team partners couldn't get along and it didn't matter and the referee didn't care. Again, the consistency isn't there. But when you look at the overall theme of the show, what did you take away from this show? Do you feel like it helped Crown Jewel? Do you feel like it was just a big distraction? What did you take away on a kind of a high level from Monday Night Raw?
Okay, what I can say is that I've already seen the review on the ratings, which was a 1.5, which is a very severe dip. Now, they are saying that it was against a couple MLB playoff games and football. Okay, I get that, but the fact is, when you're not giving us something we want to watch, especially when we're going into a subpar pay-per-view that really is theoretically scrubbed from the books after it happens every year, I don't see the point in building it up. I think what would be better for a Crown Jewel pay-per-view is basically for it to be a pay-per-view that stands on its own legs with no titles defended, and that you take your Monday Night Raw and you build a 2-month storyline to the next pay-per-view in line, which at this point would be Survivor Series. So you can actually, if you're going to build teams and do something substantial for Survivor Series, you start now and give us an 8-week slow burn, as opposed to 1 month to Crown Jewel, to something that nobody wants to see with a bunch of matches that nobody really cares about and that everybody's going to complain about. And eventually you're going to try to make us forget even happened. It's a smack in the face to the viewer. And by further pushing us on this Crown Jewel pay-per-view that we don't even want nor care about, you're giving us subpar Raws with very formulaic styles. So it turns off the casual viewer, and it turns off the hardcore viewer more than anything. I'm going to tell you this, and I was talking to my girlfriend Candy, and if anybody asks, that's what Candyland means. It's okay. It's okay. We can laugh about it. Not to bother her, I was watching it on Sling last night on my phone while she watched her television shows and everything, and I nodded off during the main event twice. In fact, I had to go back and watch the main event on YouTube today just to see what I missed, so I would not give my listeners a pathetic review or try to just kind of spitball it and read some stuff and pretend I saw it. That's not going to happen. So what I take away from this is the fact that we're building towards a pay-per-view that doesn't matter, and the only thing that they're going to try to make big on this is the fact that we're going to crown a king of the ring. Well, that hasn't meant anything in years, and once again, what's that really mean? That you get to act like a buffoon and wear a crown and maybe fake a British accent? I hate it. I've never liked it. I liked it when I didn't even really like it when it was supposed to be a stepping stone that was an accolade higher than the Intercontinental Championship or higher than the U.S. Championship. It said, look at this guy, he's the next big thing. I rather have the tournament mean something as far as it can add a stipulation, but it doesn't always have to be a title shot, just something a little bit more special. But that's something that's kind of along the lines of something that a New Japan Pro Wrestling would do with like their New Year's Dash and their G1 Climax tournaments. You know, you win something that could be 6 months down the road as opposed to the very next pay-per-view, whatever. Point is, I mean, I'm not really amped for Goldberg versus Lashley, although I got to say I was really impressed by Lashley's promo, but we're going to get to that down the road. Mm-hmm. What I saw was the go-home show for something that no one's going to care about and that no eyes are going to be on, and probably deemed the worst pay-per-view of the year. So you can say we're against all these major league sports, and so we don't really have to try, and that can be the excuse. That's what I got.
Yeah, look, we'll get to that too, the Bobby Lashley promo. Maybe the best he's ever cut in WWE. I mean, dare I say. So, because most of the time he's had somebody speaking for him or he only gets a 1 or 2 line, interview with Renee Young or whoever was there at the time. So we don't get a whole lot from Bobby. This was probably the best he's had. So beyond that, though, yeah, look, this was an attempted step towards Crown Jewel, and I think that they just basically didn't move in terms of getting people more excited or less excited. I think people just looked at this and kind of decided it was a throwaway Raw. I think that the ratings show it. They look at it and go, well, WWE didn't have a whole lot this week, so they had 2 tag team matches that were the same exact structure and format of a finish, essentially. And it was, to me, that's all you need to know when you see the same kind of formats. You had some roll-ups, a few roll-ups, as always, for Monday Night Raw. And, you had the women, I think, which was... Let's just start there as we get into specifics. Let's talk about the women's tag team match. When you look at this tag team match, these are the 4 biggest women that WWE has in terms of star power. I mean, the biggest. And why you had SmackDown stars that are still on SmackDown on Raw this past week doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I knew WWE could not help themselves, even though they told us that they would be reinstating this draft, the rosters, the night after Crown Jewel. I said no. I can guarantee you they won't be able to control themselves, and they'll just they're just going to have people on the opposing brands, even though they're not on that brand yet. So that's exactly what we got on Monday night, and I understand their purpose for that. They're trying to compete with Monday Night Football and the MLB playoff games and whatever else is on Monday nights. I understand that, but I don't know. That's the kind of stuff that, don't tell me you're going to implement the rosters on this date, but yet in the meantime, everyone can kind of float and it doesn't matter because all of a sudden it's the season premiere. Well, how is it a season premiere if the rosters aren't implemented? Nonetheless, this tag team match, unfortunately, was an absolute mess. I hate saying that with the absolute awesome talent. I mean, these are 4 future Hall of Famers, guaranteed, locked Hall of Fame. I mean, 3 out of the 4 are already essentially in the Hall of Fame. Bianca Belair is already, I mean, she's on her way, and I don't see any reason why she wouldn't be. But you take 4 women like this that are of the caliber they are, and you put them in a tag team match that the message was, opponents that are tag team in a tag team can't get along. How? I mean, that is, you talk about predictable, you talk about formulaic, you talk about really not progressing anything anywhere. That's exactly, unfortunately, what this was. It was a mess, just kind of senseless brawling, and the referee just mercifully stopped it, of which, by the way, there's no rule in WWE that has to happen. I've never actually seen that. It just happened, where the ref's like, no, I'm calling it. You know, it might have been the same referee that did Bray Wyatt and Seth Rollins at Hell in a Cell a couple of years ago. I don't know. But this was a mess, and I really felt bad for all 4 women. I'm sure the fans in attendance were like, what the hell is this? And I don't know if I'll ever be able to say that in a match where all 4 women were involved. I thought it was going to devolve into where Adam Pearce comes out and says, all right, you guys want to go at it? It's fine. It's a fatal 4-way. And instead he just reinstates the same match with the same result, and that's the end of it. So I'll stop. What did you think about this quote unquote tag team match between Becky and Charlotte versus Sasha and Bianca?
This is a classic case of we'll just feed you whatever and you believe that we're right. And this is the best way I can put it because you get one every show, okay? So I give you meat, I give you tomatoes, I give you tomato sauce, okay? And I give you a starch, and you think you're going to have the best lasagna in the world. And instead I take off the lid and it's a sloppy Joe. Same ingredients. There's your starch, there's your tomatoes and tomato sauce and your meat. But we are kind of hoping for the lasagna with these people. These 4 are amazing competitors, and they can do so much in the ring, and instead we just got trash. And there's so many things to point out about this. First of all, we have these weird back and forths, blind tags, incongruity, inability to get along. Okay, we can see it because they're all at each other's throats. There's so many little things I've noticed in this. First of all, when's a referee going to notice if you're fighting your own tag team partner, throw it out? Why do we let it go? We let it go twice this evening before we threw it out. That's so stupid. The girls, they look good. This could have been the match of the night, let alone a pay-per-view caliber and quality match. And instead, like I said, we got the sloppy Joe instead of the lasagna. The other things that really got me about this, I'm going to ask you, and first of all, I'm going to put out an apology to Mimi because I know how she hates about like chauvinistic men thinking, and this is not a chauvinistic male thing, okay? What did you notice about Bianca Belair's infographic with the lips and the hair?
Oh, trivia time. I don't know. Enlighten me. I missed it.
If you looked at it, it looked like a sperm cell swimming. I'm not joking.
Really?
I am not trying to be gross. At one point, the lips are in the middle, and the hair acted like a tail and wagged. It's like the scene that we all saw in health class,
Yep.
or we all saw in sex ed, okay? And this is me telling you a candid observation. This is not me trying to be perverse or anything like that. This is one of those things where we noticed over and over again this evening. It felt like somebody's trying to write this inside comedy, but I noticed that like right away. So on my sling, because it was DVR'd, I rewound it and I looked at it again. Sure enough, for 1 second, it waves like that. And I thought, okay, this is somebody trying to have some fun with Kevin Dunn or something like that. Oh, no one's going to pay attention. No one will catch that. It's just her hair. Squint a little, okay? I guarantee you that's part of those. Let's get back that, that demographic. Oh, look, it looks like a sperm cell. Isn't that cool? Let's cheer for her. Okay. With that being said, did you notice that Charlotte's intro was very dumbed down and very quiet?
Yes. I did, yeah.
Yeah, her robe was like... Do you remember those Parfums de Coeur commercials, like when we were like in our 20s? It's like, if you love Dakar Noir, you're going to love New York Nights. It's like the generic perfume or colognes for men.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like the knockoff robe. It was like the Parfums de Coeur version of like a Charlotte robe. I was like, what's this yard sale robe you got going on? It looks like there's traffic lights on the background or something like that. It was just garbage. And it was just, even her like little spin, everything, it seemed like it was not necessarily rushed, but yeah, I'm just going through the motions, just kind of going through the motions. And, you just kind of look at it and you say, all right, like, are you really wrestling today? Are you really on the card, or is this just a payday? I don't know. I don't know if it might be a punishment too, because the whole thing with her dad, and of course her dad going to AEW and, working with Andrade and everything else. You never know what it is with the company, but it just seemed like she phoned it in. The intro, the robe, everything. It just, something had to be approved by everybody backstage, and I just felt like it was, I don't know if rushed, phoned in the funk, whatever you want to call it. The other things, like I said, okay, so everybody's fighting everybody. Everybody's at each other's throats. But the in-ring was pretty solid. I didn't notice any botches. I didn't notice anything that looked like it was forced or like they were trying to count their steps or anybody coming short on anything. So this, like I said, had the potential to be a main eventer at a pay-per-view. It definitely had the potential to steal the show. And in some ways it kind of did, except for it just makes no sense to book a match like this, let alone when it could be pay-per-view quality or when you want to build something like this of their high caliber just on regular TV. I don't know. That's what I got out of it. How about you, buddy?
Yeah, look, I don't think you could have, even if you tried again, put these 4 top flight women in a match, the same match, and have it come out this badly again. I mean, and again, like you said, the in-between action where they were actually doing, or at least posing that it was a tag match, it was fine, but the constant message that they're sending and the constant distraction is, okay, when's the tag team going to implode? When's the tag team going to implode? And they're beating each other up and then somehow still tagging with one another, and then they beat each other up. Like, the action was okay when it was a normal tag match, but the problem was there were so many interruptions and distractions with waiting for the tag teams to implode that I think it undermined the actual match itself. And then ultimately it was just a collapse of a match that the referee was just like, yep, done, I'm going home. And it was unfortunately just, it's not one of those matches that you're going to put in any of the 4 women's Hall of Fame, video package highlights. Like, I'll just say that this is going to be one that's forgotten.
Well, easily forgotten. Now, the thing that surprised me most about this match was that Jamie Noble. Is he back?
Oh, when they were pulling Bianca Belair or whoever off on the outside, trying to restore order. I think it was.
The thing is, last I heard is after the whole Seth Rollins angle, he worked backstage for a while. That he went to work for Ring of Honor. He was like a vice president or something like that, or a major producer backstage for Ring of Honor. So I never knew he got back with the company. Now, if anybody's out there and knows the timeline better, I'm just kind of curious about it. But I was pretty sure that he left the company for at least a 2 to 3 years, and he was working Ring of Honor and or Independence. And then I was trying to figure out who the other gentleman was with him, if that was somebody from the Indies who's turned producer or something like that, or if it was just warm body number 3, Ensign Jones, get out there, kind of thing.
Yeah, I didn't notice who the other person was, but I did take a second look. And I thought the same thing, and I was like, nah, it can't be. And they just quickly moved on. I mean, the camera's not focused on him, but the other guy, the other guys in there, I didn't really. I didn't go, oh, that's so-and-so. Like you said, it could have just been like an extra or the local indie talent or whoever they cast for Raw. That could have been the case. So, all right, well, we can say that this is a throwaway match, which is insane to say. With all 4 women in this, you would think this is a slam dunk. But let's talk about the Usos next, because the Usos came out after Big E and Drew had their little bit of a promo with one another, and the reference, and I know you want to talk about this. So actually, before we get to the Usos, because they did interrupt Big E and Drew McIntyre at the beginning of Raw, which, by the way, Drew had to say welcome to Monday Night Raw. One of my pet peeves has been that, and I know nobody else really seems to mention it or care, but in a show that you're supposed to feel like anything could happen and it's unpredictable and there's the excitement, little things like that happen week after week after week that essentially is coming from corporate or Vince or whoever, that you have to say that every single time you open the show, no matter who comes out. And then if you're getting close to a pay-per-view, you have to have that person talk about the other matches as if they're the promoter. You don't believe me, and I'm not saying you don't, but the general go watch any pay-per-view a week or two out of that pay-per-view and on Raw, and go watch how that individual opens the show, whoever it is. They essentially are the promoter, and they say, welcome to Monday Night Raw. And I know that, again, people sometimes don't care about this stuff, but it adds to and chips away at the belief that this is supposed to be an uncontrolled individual, that this is a product that you can just, anything can happen at any time. Does that bother you, or am I just going crazy?
No, it's just rather inane, and it's formulaic. It's stuck in a rut booking, stuck in a rut writing. It's the same thing that we've been fed year after year, force-fed, spoon-fed. First time, the first time I tasted mayonnaise, I hated it. And everybody knows I hate mayonnaise, and I'll never try it. So every time I go to a place, I don't want someone to tell me, oh, try it, you'll like it. They don't know me, they might tell me that. So that's your first-time viewer tuning in. Now, I don't go back to the same server at the same restaurant over and over again when they're going to tell me every day, every week, or every time I visit what I'm supposed to have and what I'm going to like because it's gotten played out. I'm with you 100% on that. I'm really with you 100% on that. Welcome to Monday Night Raw. And you know what it reminds me of? In the old Nitros, the best Nitro ever. Didn't you say that last week?
Yeah. Like every show that happens will be better than the last. That's the message. It's just going to infinitely get better. There will be no stopping it. I know. Well, let's get to Big E, because I know that we talked a little bit off air about the comments about the nipple comments. So go ahead, Mr. Gardner.
Okay, first of all, that is one of like we said earlier, just like the meaty men comments. It sounds like a couple of sixth graders who are sitting in the back of the bus trying not to get kicked off, coming up with the dirtiest innuendos they can just because they think it'll be really cool. And I don't know who's writing for the show, and I don't know how in the hell that Vince McMahon is approving all of this, because it's not that it's disgusting. It just insults my intelligence that we would have something that even kids in high school are going, this is lame. This is really, really lame. And so then when he said it, of course, first of all, he's still in New Day mode. Although you notice he's trying to do flashes of serious. Well, first of all, you still dress like you're in the New Day. You still undulate and gyrate. You're dumbing it down a little bit, but then you still do the big eyes. And of course, I messaged you from Saturday when he made his appearance at the Iowa game, and he came out to that just like a New Day fool in a goofy pair of overalls that were striped, acting like, just like the New Day. Just like you're not creating a new character. You're not evolving. It's not like everybody has to go from Kurt Angle funny to Kurt Angle serious, but you have to create something different to separate yourself from what you used to be, because you're going to be associated with it and it's going to drag you down. And we've discussed that a million times, so I'm not going to kill our listeners with it. But the fact is, that promo, I don't know how it got greenlit. That promo was terrible. It was. I'm trying to think of the best way to say it without using an obscenity, but it was just garbage. Any fifth grader could have wrote that promo, and then to reference it later in his private conversation. Oh well, you kind of got a smirk out of my nipple comment. Like, why? Why'd you bring that back up? What idiot greenlit that again? Is this Jamie Noble? Do we need to go after him? Jamie, if you're listening, sorry. But seriously, it was piss poor writing. I'm sorry to use that language, but that's what it was. And so we get this Big E world champion, but still in the New Day mode. And then, of course, Team DUI, the Usos come out. And why they have to refer to everybody's Us? Can someone just tell me why they do that? If they're the Usos, why is everybody Us?
It's like it's like the Street Profits. Everyone's fam, right? And same thing. Yeah. And again, maybe I'm just not up with the hip language. I don't know. I'm not in that group anymore of making sure that I understand. I just learned what the word cap meant. Apparently, cap is not baseball cap. It means lying. Apparently, that's like cap means lie. That there you go, guys. If you don't know that.
Is that? Never mind.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go there. I almost threw some Snoop Dogg references in there, but I think you'd already figured out where I'm going with
yes,
that.
I did.
So, pop a line.
So back to the nipples.
So back to the nipples. Okay, so it was just uncalled for. And what it does is, so we get the Usos, Team DUI out there, and honestly, they're doing great work. But the fact is, how did these guys become main eventers? I get they're related to Roman Reigns, and for some reason they've got a golden parachute, so they can do anything they want and never get in trouble, never get their walking papers. But at this point, their career has probably been the most established over the last years, building somebody out of nothing. Because they were just tag team people. Now all of a sudden they're associated with top tier, and they can even wrestle singles matches, and they're supposed to be top tier. If they're going to be tag team, let's draw it back on the singles thing. But okay, so it brings it out. So now we have the big conundrum. Is it going to be face tagging with face that can't stand each other against these dastardly tag team champion heels but they're a tag team specialist, so you just got to watch it. We know what the setup was, and we know what was going on. And then, of course, we are given the ultimate gift of the New Day showing their idiot acting like fools segment too. So the whole thing was a really long, large, drawn out, poorly written segment that just sets up a main event that put me to sleep.
And I hate saying that, given, again, the talent. It's almost like it's not the talent or even the star power that was the problem. It's the writing. It's the writing and the creative that is responsible for last night's really subpar Raw, because Drew McIntyre, really big star and a believable guy. He is physical. He has really just remade himself. He's been reborn essentially from what he was. The Usos, elite tag team. And, you have Big E on the rise. You and I are not fans because of his ties to the New Day, but I respect his body of work. But when you put Big E into this role that he's supposed to also make us laugh, which I think that's the point of that, was it's supposed to be a little bit of relatability or likability, or this guy's not, this guy can make you laugh too. Isn't that great? Doesn't he make you feel good? I think that was the reasoning behind this line, and thinking that maybe Big E could pull it off. It didn't work. I found it cringeworthy. It was kind of a little embarrassing. I was just like, what are we doing here? Why are we talking about Big E's nipples? And somebody may say, well, The Rock talked about all these things. Yeah, well, The Rock is a once in a lifetime generational star that made it work because he was charismatic as hell. He could actually be serious. Like, I know I'm drawing comparisons to The Rock and Big E, but the content of it depends on who's delivering it, and if they also can do it in a way that is not eye-rolling. And Big E, with his gyrations and everything else that just will not go away, he's got the New Day flu that will not leave his system, and I don't know if it's ever going to. I think he will forever be tied to that group until unless he has a massive character change, which I don't foresee coming. We're still going to see the gyrations and the hips swiveling and the tongue out with the big eyes and all the weird kind of like inside jokes that we're not supposed to get but kind of get, and we feel like we're in on it. But all these things that are just, I don't know. I've just disliked the New Day for so long now. I'm a broken record. But as far as Drew and Big E went, they went from tense in the ring to all of a sudden they're best friends backstage doing like a weird handshake that I didn't really understand. Did anybody understand? Did you understand what the hell they were doing? Was that supposed to be something that did I miss the connection there?
That's remember our secret handshake at the back of the bus? Come on. Mm-hmm. Seriously, this was written by kids in the clubhouse. And on a sidebar before you continue, what is with people bragging about being drafted to the same show they were already on?
Yeah.
Don't give me, you're not drafted to something. That means you weren't drafted. Okay?
Yeah, that's it.
The best way I can put it. So it's if I work at Churchill Downs and I didn't get switched over to working at Madison Square Garden, but I was told you're still going to be at Churchill Downs, I'm not going to brag. Because guess what? It makes no sense. I mean, it's great that they decided to keep me, but let's make some sense out of it. It's so stupid that we have so many of these wrestlers coming out. I've been drafted to Raw. You were on Raw this whole time. Does anybody care? Where does that go? That's not storyline. That just makes no sense. Just don't draft them. Or if you're going to keep them on the same show, you say, if you're a title holder, you can't move. Okay, that makes sense. And we only made 10 people available from each to make it interesting. So that way it doesn't look like someone's overlooked. They're picked at random by a ping pong machine. That makes more sense than I was drafted to SmackDown, but I'm already a SmackDown Tag Team Champion. Come on, man. Come on.
Nobody has said yet. I keep waiting for the sentence of I'm staying on Raw or I'm staying on SmackDown. Apparently, that language doesn't exist. Everyone has to say, I've been drafted to whatever, even like you said, if they've been there for a few years. I mean, there's some stars that have actually been on the same brand for a couple of years now, and it's still being phrased, and they're being told to say, I've been drafted to Raw, even though I've been on Raw for like 3 years. Instead of saying, yeah, I'm remaining on SmackDown. I think the language here and the reason for that being restricted, and I do believe it's been restricted, is that they don't want somebody to say that because that will imply subconsciously maybe to people that things are kind of staying the same, right? And when you say I'm remaining somewhere, that says to you, so no change. Right, so I think that's the reason. So they're trying to make something more exciting than it actually is, and playing with language. That's what I think that is.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, there's no belts. There's just championships. And there's no pronouns. That's Vince's world. That's everything he lives in. And so I've been drafted to wherever you are. You just stay the same. You're complacent, which defines what's going on with the writing.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to back up because I want to skip a spot here and talk about something for my flashback of the evening segment. And my flashback of the evening segment goes to one of our commercial breaks. What did they feature all night long? Chucky. It's Chucky coming to Sci-Fi. Chucky coming to Sci-Fi. I don't care. But then they show Chucky watching wrestling. So, do we know how this features into my flashback segment?
Boy, I do not. And I don't because, and actually I watch Hulu, so that wasn't a commercial on Hulu. I don't have commercials there, but I'm trying to think of how could that fit into something? I don't know.
It ties up really, really well. So apparently, from what I understand, I think the premiere is going to be tomorrow, or I think it's going to be Wednesday, okay? Wednesday, let's see, I don't even know what night NXT runs anymore, if it's Tuesdays or Wednesdays.
Tuesdays.
The point is, Tuesdays, okay, but it might as well be a Wednesday. Okay, so here we go. And if anybody who's an old schooler like me will pay attention. So in the 90s, when Nitro was still at its peak, or somewhat at its peak, when it was starting to die, all of a sudden Chucky started making appearances. Is this flashing back now?
A little bit, yeah. Oh, boy. Yes, yeah.
Yes. And who would Chucky always interrupt while he was making a promo?
Oh, God. It's on Nitro. I wasn't a big Nitro fan, but I have an image of that in my brain.
Oh, you're going to love this. Rick Steiner. Who's Rick Steiner's son? This new hotshot Braun Breaker that's in NXT, who they're grooming to be the next champion. How coincidental is all that? Did someone actually pay attention for 20 plus years besides me?
Wow. Guys, go watch this. I mean, or at least if you don't know about the Rick Steiner and Chucky
it was
deal, yeah.
Rick Steiner interacted with Chucky as lame as like when way back like 8 years ago when the Muppets were a guest host on Raw and Sheamus talked to him like they were human beings. And it just makes you turn the channel going, why do I watch this? It was so stupid. Rick Steiner was confused. He wanted to know why Chucky was talking to him, and the storyline went nowhere. He just bothered him for a few weeks so they could promote the next Child's Play movie. But now all of a sudden it's coming back. It's associated with wrestling, and Rick Steiner's kid's blowing up. Coincidence? I think not. Okay. I'm sorry.
I don't think anyone would have made that. I never would have made that connection, so good for you.
Thank you. It just reminds me of something that Perry Saturn said when the Radicals jumped to WWE. When they said, what do you think of WCW now, which was a few months later when all this kind of stuff was going on, he said, the only people who watch that are old men and kids. And I see that coming full circle now, but on WWE's side. Now, let's look at some positives.
Before we get there, anybody remember, I don't think I've uttered the words Perry Saturn on this show, just because he hasn't ever come up, and he was more of a WCW guy. But when they came over as the Radicals, anybody else remember Moppy, right? Like, anybody remember when he went insane? Like, he got hit in the head or something, and like, he had this mop that was his girlfriend. Anybody remember that?
I got you on that, but I will. You know why they did that to him, right?
No.
Oh, I think the guy's name was Bell, Mike Bell. It's hard for me to remember the enhancement talent's name, but the guy botched a few moves on Perry, and you can watch the match. Perry beat the snot out of him bad, and I think it might have paralyzed him or temporarily paralyzed him. They had to basically pay for his surgery. They had to really take care of this guy because Perry, people don't know he was an Army Ranger. He was like a legit tough guy, and he snaps on the guy. When you watch it in the ring, you're like, okay, you're stiffening him. Okay, you're hurting him. And he hurt the guy really bad, so that was his punishment because he had, I think, already re-signed the contract and wanted to see if they could salvage him a little bit. And they figured at this point they couldn't push him, so they're going to use him as the glorified enhancement talent, like the jobber to the stars, so to speak.
I did not know that. Guys, we got a resident wrestling historian here. That's good to know. I really did not know about that. I mean, I was watching that. I was like 16, 17 years old. I thought it was hilarious, but okay, that's good to know. Yeah. Makes sense.
So,
yeah, back to the task at hand here with current WWE product. Yeah, I know we were talking about the Usos and Big E and Drew, and they had their match. The Usos ended up defeating Big E and Drew McIntyre via disqualification. So what did you think about this? I mean, it looked like, first of all, Drew got a big, nice little lump on his head there with it was actually bleeding. And I don't know how it happened. I didn't pay that close of attention. It might have been somebody baseball slided out of the ring or something. I'm not sure, but it ended up with just Big E and Uso and Drew McIntyre standing tall until Big E gets the Claymore, and Drew stands over Big E, and that was pretty much it. What did you think about this match?
This whole thing was confusing. I mean, it's really confusing. The winners in this, like as far as in ring and making sense, was the Usos. First of all, I don't know when Big E got split open. I noticed that, I think you were right, like a baseball slide kind of thing coming out of the ring. Or maybe like an Uso high-flying maneuver that it didn't get caught right away. It might have just kind of worked itself open because it didn't look like a gash. It kind of looked like maybe a flat cut. If you look at it, it wasn't dripping blood. No. It was kind of a very flat, blood spot. But what I'll say with it is you noticed it after Big E bashed his head off the stairs. I believe that's what happened. And they go at each other and they fight. Why do you let the fight go for a few minutes? I didn't. Some of this just makes no sense to me. It's that selective refereeing, that selective calling it down. Well, you're not calling it down the middle. It makes no sense. If your team can't get along, you call the match. But then you're going to have to give us as the viewer something more to sink our teeth into to understand. We already know why. We already knew this was going to happen. But, of course, the Usos in the prior segment also broke the fourth wall with the call to Roman and everything else, which I kind of liked, kind of didn't. Honestly, the Usos were probably one of the highlights of the show because they came out, they did what they said they were going to do, and they went home, except for, acting like a fool by bragging that they got drafted to the same show they were on. They cut their promos, without Paul Heyman, without Roman Reigns. They didn't need that to get themselves over or maintain the spot that they were at for heat, which I thought was really interesting because at certain points when they were cutting those intro promos at the beginning of the show, they were getting some cheers. And I just think that's because the crowd already knew what was going to happen, how predictable it was going to be, that they were going to set up a tag team match, and that obviously it was going to be a match where they couldn't get along. The same old that we've always had for throwaway go-home shows or just throwaway pay-per-views, one-off pay-per-views like this situation. Match wasn't bad. It wasn't botch-tastic at all. In fact, I just think that it's like you could say you cut the tension with the knife. There's no tension. You're just waiting for like one small little thing, and all of a sudden they imploded. And that's kind of what happened here. But it was solid work. They put on a good 10 minutes of what they had to do. They tried to tell a story with the best time they had with, they took lemons and turned it into lemonade the best they could. So getting a little color on Drew helped out a little bit, adds a little bit more heat, a little more sustainable heat going into Crown Jewel. The only thing is when Big E's like bouncing your head off the stairs and you're getting blood, how are we supposed to see him as this Mr. Babyface? I'm not saying a face can't do it, but there's situations for that. Like you see Dusty Rhodes going against Ric Flair and he cuts Ric Flair open. That's because Ric Flair has like done so many heinous things to him, and it's in the steel cage, and it means something more. Whereas trying to establish Big E as this new leader of the face and the whole leader of the division, so on and so forth, blah 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 blah. His moveset needs to agree with him a little bit more, and the whole mindset and ring presence needs to agree with him a little bit more. So he needs to be a bit more conflicted before he just all in on just going after Drew. We get it, they're going to face each other. If you're going to do something like this, you might as well have a pull apart. That makes more sense. Have a pull apart over ego versus I hate you, because they don't hate each other, and they're both faces. Wrapping it up on that main event, like I said, I nodded off twice. Also, it was kind of late, and I did, get up at 6:30 that morning, so, it just didn't flow perfectly for me. But, the Usos stand tall, and we're just going into a pay-per-view where hopefully this is all over with, and then we can go on with everybody splitting onto the shows where they're supposedly supposed to be.
Yeah, we'll see if they can. And somebody should have some kind of tracker. Somebody needs to keep track at home. Maybe I will, of how many weeks it takes for them to decide to just randomly violate their draft rules, or just decide to implement a rule like the wild card rule, the quarterly invitational. And let's see how long it takes for them to do that. I mean, I'd love to know the over under. Maybe we'll do some kind of calculation here of what the over under is on that. I would guess maybe 2 months tops, maybe less. Until somebody just shows up that shouldn't be there, which again kind of negates the whole point of a draft. But what do I know? One last thing I'll say that you haven't already said, because I don't want to duplicate what you said, because I don't really have much to add to that, is just in the opening promo with Drew and Big E, when they were talking about what it means to be WWE champion, and that Drew understands the excitement of being WWE champion, and he wants his moment at Crown Jewel, and he's not going to let it slip through his fingers. And the one thing Big E, or rather Drew, said was that, I know what it's like to be WWE champion, and I did it, and I entertained all these fans for 300 and some days straight. I'm like, wait. I'm like, Drew, no, what are you talking about? You made it a point to entertain us. Again, you don't talk about making sure we're entertained. Like when Sheamus screams, "Are you not entertained?" I can't stand that. When they talk about making history, that there's too much of people in promos talking about making history, and in Drew's case, about making sure that we were entertained. Again, those are kayfabe killers, whatever's left of it, and it takes me out of the moment and reminds me that this is a performance. And I think that it's something that just overall doesn't need to be said common sense wise. It's a byproduct that you just don't speak about. We know that this is entertainment. You don't need to tell us that you're just here for our entertainment. So, Drew, I love you, man. And I don't know who gave you that word or that line, but that was just added to the kind of the mess of the night. Did you notice that?
Yeah. I don't like that I'm an entertainer. I wish that E would go away. And you and I have had this conversation a million times. There's so many little things that are just like kayfabe killers, like you said, that if you said it in the 90s, you would have been suspended. If you said it in the 80s, you would have been fired. And if you said it in the 70s before the territories died, you would have been blackballed from wrestling. You'd go back to whatever your career was beforehand. So, back then, if you were a heel, you traveled with a heel. You didn't stay at the same hotels. And of course, it's a different time, different era. And we've
locker rooms too.
Yeah, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's insane. When I listen to some of these old schoolers and their podcasts and or shoot videos and just the things that you had to do. And I mean, the Bill Watts rule. If you got beat up, if you were a wrestler and you got beat up by anybody who wasn't a wrestler, you got fired. That means Shawn Michaels' Marine incident. He would have got fired. And the truth behind it, which I love, like you listen to all of the click, it's like 8 Marines jumped him, but Davey Boy couldn't get out of the back seat to help him because he was so large. Davey Boy hated Shawn. They wouldn't have traveled together. And the other part was, I heard it was one guy who slapped him around for fun. He would have been fired by Bill Watts, and he would have been out of wrestling forever. And that's everybody's so-called, best wrestler ever. And that's insane when you think about the standards and the practices that they had back then to today. I wish that entertainer would go away. It's just so bad. It's really, it hurts. It hurts the business as an overall. If we're supposed to buy into it, we all know it's a work, but it's our entertaining work. So the more you kill it and the more you announce it's a work and we admit it's a work, why?
It would be like in the middle of a movie, you have the actors talking to one another about like making sure this is entertaining to the people watching. I mean,
exactly.
How quickly would that take you out of the moment? And WWE does this on a regular basis, and they wonder why emotional investment's down.
I just wish, the professor was trying to fix the hole in the boat with 2 coconuts and a piece of chewing gum, and Gilligan looks right into the fourth wall and says, "Now the professor's not going to get this one right. He never does. By the way, here's a pause from our station affiliate." What?
Yeah.
That wouldn't fly on the island. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. That there is no. I mean, that's exactly what WWE does, and for some reason they feel that it's okay to do because they pulled the curtain back so far. But at the same time, yeah, you've pulled the curtain back, but we still want to believe. I mean, what creates the entertainment is the belief and the emotional investment, and you can't do that if you're constantly undermining your own product and reminding the audience regularly that what they're watching isn't real. It's just it's unbelievable about what they're doing to their own product. But let's move on here.
Yes.
Dewdrop versus Dana Brooke, or was it? No, it was Shayna. Why am I can't remember.
It was Shayna. I've got Dewdrop. My notes on Dewdrop is that she looks like a grown-up version of the B-girl from the No Rain video by Blind Melon. And it's a feel-good story. I don't know. I want Mimi's opinion on this. Those are my notes. But getting back to Dana. Okay, I want to talk Dana and Shayna Baszler, actually, because I've got two things to say about this that are very important. First of all, I love Shayna. And to me, Shayna sticks out like a sore thumb in the women's division because Shayna can legitimately tie up any one of them and smack them around for fun. That she is the most untapped potential next to probably Dana Brooke. And the only other person I would say, well, no, and Zelina Vega, but okay, those are all for different reasons, but I'm going to explain why real quick so I don't sidebar too much. But the fact is, everybody's waiting for Shayna to have her big comeuppance and be the women's heel champion and be the badass women's heel champion that we want, like a female version of Brock Lesnar. And with them pushing it off the way they are, they haven't necessarily pushed it off in a putrid way. Okay, she had to do the tag team stuff, and then she gets caught up in, six-pack scrambles or whatever else they do with the women's division to dumb it down more because they just want to put them on TV sometimes and not give them, some real sizzle. Instead, they just kind of want to present it and hope you buy into it. Like, look, we're pushing women too. No, you are when you give us a good match, not when you just put 6 women in the ring and say, all right, just give it to Sasha tonight or give it to Charlotte or give it to Bayley. What I see really good about Shayna in this is that we might see something because of our frustration of her being pushed away but always still having strong presences. Do you think that she might have the Benoit effect? I've thought about this. She always consistently puts on a great match, just like Benoit did. You always want her to wear gold, but at the most she gets minor gold. And every time she gets a championship opportunity, they screw her out of it. So when it comes down to it, that time she does win the championship, and if this booking is going down that road, I say push it another 6 months to a year because they might be onto something very organic with this. I started thinking about, I can't wait to watch her wrestle because of how great she is, her ring presence, and how bloodthirsty she is. The only thing that her drawback is you can tell she's not an orator, so you can tell that her promos are scripted. Of course, everybody's are, but you can tell she sometimes has that sputter stop where she has to think about her next words. It's not her fault. It's not her forte. If she had a mouthpiece, it would flow better. I think Nia kind of filled that, even though she was just better at speaking than Shayna was, okay? I know some people aren't going to agree with me, but the fact is, Shayna's very solid. She has something different from the 4 Horsewomen, but she's equally as good. She has a legitimate credibility to her as far as how tough she is. And by us keeping that title, just dangling that carrot one grasp away, we might be onto something. In fact, her best work might be as a babyface when she finally turns because she can't get it. I want people to put that in the ground and water it because we might be growing a tree that someday is going to be beautiful and big, and like we might have like a true WrestleMania moment with her. If they put it off for a year, maybe even 2, but she just consistently puts on great matches, and if you can find side storylines for her that don't necessarily have to involve getting the women's title, but her just either bulldozing or having great series of matches with some of the better female competitors, silently, she could take over that role as the most organic person on Raw. So we talked off the air about finding something positive. Shayna Baszler's it. Now, as her competitor, Dana Brooke, this girl is so underrated. She's just as strong as Bianca Belair. People don't know that Dana Brooke was an amateur bodybuilder. I mean, not to the level of like Braun Strowman or something like that, but yes, the girl is legit strong. She can do some crazy stuff with her body as far as squatting, bench pressing, whatever. I won't bore you with the details, but the fact is the girl's strong. She got rushed up to the main roster before she could get polished in NXT and still had to learn somewhat on the fly. That doesn't mean she's bad. It's just the fact that she was behind the curve when she got put under the limelight. That's not fair. With that being said, in a couple of years, I could see her blossoming up to the top tier. The fact is you have to get other people out of that position first. So it's kind of hard to climb the ladder when there's a pair of feet standing on your hands. And then the last girl on that was Selena Vega. And people don't know, just go back. Watch that Mae Young Classic. She's probably the most talented woman who's not being pushed. She just keeps getting the bottom of the barrel stuff. And I think it's just because she has a poison tongue. She can rattle off anything. She can do anything. She was so great as a manager. She's so small. I mean, her and Alexa Bliss should have like the 5-foot challenge going on. I'd pay to watch it, actually, because I think they could put on one hell of a match together. But Zelina Vega, incredibly talented, whatever. It wasn't about those two. The point is, all three are great, and all three could have a lot of stuff and momentum going forward. But Shayna, man, she's light years ahead of where she should be just because we all want it for her. And the longer they put it off with substantial reason, which is something they're kind of doing, when she gets it, that payoff is going to be amazing.
And we've been, like you said, the fans have been waiting, and I've been waiting, and I think that even casual fans have been waiting for Shayna to get out of the tag team and to go off and do what she does best, and that's just snap people's arms and hurt people. I've been advocating for that for 6+ months, and we're finally getting it. And it's really insane how she has yet to have a women's championship run. It's really crazy. I know many of us, including myself, believe that she should have beaten Becky at WrestleMania 36, and she didn't. The WrestleMania that will forever be the quietest WrestleMania of all time, most uncomfortable WrestleMania of all time. But that should have been her time, and it's really a shame that wasn't in front of a crowd. I think the crowd would have booed the hell out of that decision. Not booing in a way that's like, oh, boo, we hate Shayna, but booing in a way that's just booing Becky. I think Becky was on the verge of turning heel organically. But back to the present day, Shayna right now is in a really good position. Now, that said, Dana Brooke, I know that many people, including yourself, you feel that she has potential, and I do too. I feel like she's kind of been overlooked and just really has a awful win-loss record. But this past match here with Shayna Baszler, granted they only wrestled for like a minute and 20. It's actually a minute and 22 seconds officially that the match lasted, which is kind of really disrespectful. But I'll get to that in a second.
Yes.
The one thing I'll say about Dana Brooke in this match, again, I'm not hating on her. I don't really often talk about Dana Brooke at all. I think she's got potential. She's got a good look. She, all these things. But she had 2 roll-up attempts on Shayna that were just awful. And what I mean by awful is that she clearly, like when the referee was counting 1, 2, she pushed Shayna off of her rather than having it appear that she was trying to keep Shayna down where Shayna was actually kicking out. And I'm trying to explain it without actually seeing it. And I hope you guys know what I'm talking about. Like when you do a roll up, and it's not just Dana that's guilty of this. Sometimes you'll see it where wrestlers, they know it's not the finish of the match, so they have to release the hold, but you don't want to make it look like you're releasing the hold. You want to make it look like your opponent is struggling out of it. And in this case, it was egregiously bad, like really bad, if anybody caught that. So I'm not knocking her because they only had a minute and 20 to go, but it is something that shouldn't happen at her level. It shouldn't happen for all the years that she's been there and that she has been in WWE. But that said, the overall fact that they have really minimized the amount of time that they've given to this Queen's Crown, it's really it's shocking given that they have pushed the women so hard and I think done a overall very good job, and they've built some future Hall of Famers, no doubt. But the overall message that they've sent with the amount of time they've given to every Queen Crown's quarterfinals match on SmackDown last week and now on Raw has totaled about like 7 minutes for all of these matches that they've done. It has been really just shameful for WWE to be giving the women this little amount of time. It feels like it's back to the Divas era. I feel like I'm back in the Divas era with how quickly they're ending these women's matches. And I don't know if it's distrust that they can't have a good match, or the crowd won't care, or what the deal is. But Shayna Baszler winning made sense. I'm just concerned about the overall length of the matches that they're giving these women. I mean, it's like 1, 2, maybe 3 minutes if you're lucky, totaling up to under 10 minutes for all of the matches. It's shameful.
It's forced. It's one of those things where, all right, how much are we going to give AJ Styles to wrestle, single-handedly to make Omos look better? So we'll give you 12 minutes, but all right, sorry, ladies, we're going to have to cut your match. It's like, who are we going to try to build who can't wrestle? And I'm not knocking him, but we'll get to him when we get to his segment here in a little bit. But the fact is, when it comes down to brass tacks and baseball bats, it is defecating on the women's product by giving them 1-minute matches and kind of just the reason that they're justifying is that they're saying Dana Brooke, and of course we have this weird Dana Brooke and Corey thing going on, this Corey Graves, which it might be part of a storyline to eventually light a fire under Dana Brooke. So she reinvents herself, which also, and a real quick sidebar, she looked like different, like plastic surgery kind of different.
Yes, I was going to say that, but I didn't know if anyone else was thinking. Yeah, I did notice that. Yes.
Okay. So her face looked like it was reconstructed, but it could have been she was just done up a little bit different. I know her hair was a little bit different from the way it normally looks. Not quite like Charlotte Flair's Lassie hairdo that she had this week, but we won't get into that. But the fact is, they're also building this thing with Corey and Dana, and they're going to see where that might ignite her. Is the only thing that I can hope that eventually starts Dana on a winning path. But yeah, the 1-minute matches. What's it mean? And what was Shayna's nickname? Was it the Queen of Spades?
Queen of Spades.
Okay, I want you to think about that because that's going to come full circle when we talk about the tournament a little bit later. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, it's hurting. It's definitely hurting the women's product just to have these like quick roll ups. And yeah, Dana did not. It was not her finest piece of work. But also, when you know that you're just going to count the ring lights in a minute, you're probably just quick to get it over with and get back to the dressing room, strip everything off, hit the showers, and hit the hotel, and get on the road to the next time you have to count the ring lights.
Probably. Yeah, I mean, I didn't hear a whole lot of reaction for Dana Brooke, though, so I don't feel like WWE feels that they need to do anything about it. I think Dana Brooke is their resident jobber, and that's kind of a shame.
Yes.
It is a shame because I think there's more to Dana Brooke than meets the eye. I remember her even the most important moment of her career in my mind that stands out is when Ronda Rousey was in the women's division, and she actually stood up to Ronda Rousey and she had a decent promo against her. Now Ronda Rousey just quickly put her down, but the point I'm making is that she actually had a presence on the mic when she was talking to Rousey, and it felt like she was being elevated, and obviously that wasn't the case. But Dana doesn't have a whole lot to stand on. Like she there's not a whole lot that she's done in her career in WWE. It's been a whole lot of just, as you said, looking up at the ring lights, hitting the town, or hitting the hotel, going back to the next town, driving here, flying there, and you do wonder what Dana's, what is she here for? Like, if I'm Dana Brooke, am I just here to collect a paycheck? Do I want to go to AEW? What do I want to do? But as far as Shayna Baszler goes, yeah, I mean, I think we've covered this pretty well for a 1:22 match. But anything else on this? Because I do want to talk next about Bobby Lashley's promo.
The only thing I can say is if what I said with this might be a long and maybe a couple years down the road before Shayna sees the women's title, if it's a slow burn like that and they're actually building something organic, if they have the mentality to do that instead of hot-shotting that title onto her just to answer something that AEW does, we might have our first really awesome feeling organic moment in a long time. And I'm not talking like, the best way I can put it is when you want something for so long, but it takes like almost 5 years to get where you want to be. In fact, if she never wore the NXT Women's Championship and she's still on this path, like say she got booted out of NXT just for being too brutal and that's how they brought her up to the main roster, would have been a great storyline if she's going to be on this path where she is now. I just see it You could almost do a Ken Shamrock thing with her. She just loses her cool and just keeps getting disqualified when she should win the title. I see a good payoff for her if they keep that belt off her, as dumb as it sounds. As much as I want it on her, and I think it'll be very believable, it's going to be a lot more if you tease us the proper way. You tease us the proper way and maybe make it with her being a babyface. We have opened up a whole new door that no one sees coming, and I think it'd be really, really awesome.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Like, I mean, once fans, I think right now, here's the thing. I think that we have not just the fan or WWE looking at Dana going, oh, she's not getting a whole lot of reaction. I think fans right now are kind of glued on to Liv Morgan. I think Liv Morgan's in that role right now, that fans kind of have that sympathetic feel towards, that the crowd or the WWE has mismanaged her, has misbooked her, has underutilized her. She's been underestimated for so long, whatever adjective you want to use. And I think that Liv Morgan fills that role right now. Had Liv Morgan not existed, or she had also been fired, then I think Dana Brooke would fill that role. Maybe you'd start to see a little bit more of a connection with the fans, possibly. But right now, the fans have someone to glom onto with that role, and it's Liv Morgan. And I know that they are nothing to do with one another, but in terms of the fans' perspective, they have that. They have their little Daniel Bryan going right now in Liv Morgan.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's talk about Lashley, because this was, and I'll just give an overview, and then I'll toss it to you for your commentary on it. Bobby Lashley cut again, I think you and I both agreed, probably one of his best in-ring promos ever in WWE this week, and really showed you that. And for the first time, I didn't miss MVP, which is saying a lot. And I still do miss MVP. I'll say that. Not completely. I think MVP adds a lot to the character, and he's done a masterful job and absolutely lives up to the name of MVP. But that said, it felt for the first time truly like Lashley didn't need MVP to speak for him this week. And it was a really well-delivered promo. He didn't stumble a whole lot. He, if at all, he spoke clearly, concisely, had conviction. He talked about he's going to put Goldberg down. He referred to Goldberg as a dog, a rabid dog, and that Goldberg may have a strong bite, but he plans to put that dog down. And did also talk about how he's being threatened with his life, and how you don't talk to the Almighty that way, and the Almighty's gonna strike you down. I mean, it was a very well done, short but to the point, and just very, very just really good promo. It's what you would expect Bobby to deliver at this stage of his career, and it's funny that he delivers this promo after he's not WWE champion anymore. But this was really well done. What did you think?
Okay, so my notes start off as thank God Bobby Lashley showed up.
The announcers were shocked. Why are the announcers shocked, by the way? I don't understand that. They were so surprised that he was going to be there. Why? He's part of Monday Night Raw.
I guess because MVP's not there, so without his mouthpiece,
but he's been there every week since MVP hasn't. I don't know. It didn't make sense to me.
Okay, so what I love, he's still wearing the purple, which is a sign of regal. It's the sign of what a king is always supposed to wear purple, okay? Mm-hmm. Which, of course, you would think going into the crown jewel of the king of the ring, it would be foreshadowing, but he's above that. He's above a stepping stone like that, okay? Now, what I initially wrote, and it all gets spun, was that Bobby Lashley with no MVP is rough, but then I was wrong. I said my only problem with this promo is that he started going a little bit 80s style on it and getting a little loud and yelling a little bit with the promo. Which, if you look back, a lot of wrestlers, when they would cut a promo, being interviewed by Mean Gene or Lord Alfred Hayes, whoever, they would get really intense and yell, but they're yelling at a cameraman. They're not yelling at another wrestler. So that's why that's kind of changed over the years. He started out like that, but then it grew on me because instead of seeing it as a yell, he wasn't yelling. He was just being stern and forceful and stating his facts and his opinion. His best work behind the mic probably ever. It went on longer than I thought it would be. It wasn't just a simple, I'm coming to beat you. And while he's cutting this promo in the best work of his career on the mic, I've got these idiots like Corey Graves saying that he and Goldberg are hard-hitting rivals. Hard-hitting rivals. But they have a week-long rivalry? Something like that?
Yeah.
Rivals? Yeah. But do you think that the whole "You're Dead" promo is like an answer to Arn Anderson over on AEW talking about a gun and shooting somebody? Like it's supposed to be edgy too, kind of thing? Because it's not very PG.
No.
It's just something I thought about. But the fact is, it was a great promo, and he's still operating in that Nick Bockwinkel style of "I am the best. I've proven it before. I've had a little bit of a roadblock. I stumbled over it. I'm on my way, and now you're throwing a dinosaur in front of me. I'm taking him out to pasture, and I'm going to leave him there." I love it. He's doing great work, and I was impressed with the fact that he could pull off these lines without stammering, stuttering, and you're talking to a guy who stutters, so I'm very impressed with it, and a guy who's not known for his verbal skills without the aid of probably the second strongest promo man in WWE behind Paul Heyman with MVP. So this was great work. And still, to keep up wearing the three-piece suit, looking like $1 million, you are a destroyer dressed like Armani just took you out of their showroom. I love it. He is adding so much more to this character. It's definitely a throwback to Nick Bockwinkel, but just being so much bigger than a guy like Bockwinkel was, just being so much dominant and strong, and just like when he's wrestling, as opposed to his gentleman without it being over the top. Like, it's not Ric Flair. Trust me, people. It's Bockwinkel. It's great. I love his work. It really was probably a highlight promo of the show. Definitely. Loved it.
No doubt. This was, I looked at this and I'm like, where the hell has this Bobby Lashley been? Right? Like, I'm like, did they just not trust him? Or maybe they have taken his sample of promos and been like, that's, this is why we don't give him the mic. Or I don't know what changed this week where they decided, you know what, let's just put him out there and see what happens. I don't know what changed. Maybe they just decided, let's see what he can do. He's no longer champion. Let's see what he can do with a, quote, longer form audio. I say longer in terms of how many words Bobby normally speaks. This was just a classic wrestling promo, just very well done. It made sense. It was easy to understand. It was believable. That's the most important part. And Bobby he hit it out of the park. And I hope that this Bobby Lashley stays and this wasn't just a one-off. It wasn't just an anomaly. It wasn't just a flash in the pan promo. I don't think it is, because Bobby has so much experience, wrestling experience in this genre, that you would think that he probably came back there and felt really good about the way he delivered it. I'm sure he got great reviews from his peers and probably Vince. I don't see how you couldn't, especially given the previous promos from Bobby that have been not good at times. Remember the Three Sisters and all that? Remember that when it's the sit down with Renee? Yeah, like there's been some bad moments. So this was Bobby Lashley, the Bobby Lashley that I was waiting for to come out on the mic, and it came across great. And now we just got to get to Crown Jewel and see how that plays out. Hopefully, we don't see Goldberg commit murder on televised worldwide events, because which again, I don't like wrestling talking about, and I brought this up on my show last night, but I'll say it again. I don't like when wrestling brings up death, and not because I'm offended by it or I take it personally or no. It's not that. It's just, it doesn't belong in pro wrestling, because you can't ever deliver on it. And you can't say, like when Goldberg said in his promo last week, that no DQ gives you a license to kill. Since when? Like, are the police going to say that? Or like, well, you were in a no DQ match, so you're free to go. I mean,
thank God I got Perry Mason.
Yeah, like I got Perry Mason on standby. Like, this is that I know the message. I understand the context of what he was saying last week. I get it, but if we're going to take the words literally, that he kept over and over saying, it wasn't just in passing, that he has a license to kill and he's going to kill it. Like, no, you're not. You're never going to deliver on that. You can't ever say that. And it's a PG environment on top of it. To me, it's a cheap way to get people interested in this match that otherwise would, if you were a smarter fan, would look at this and say, no, he's not doing that. Right? Like, I don't think most fans are like, you're not doing that. We all know that. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of bringing death into a pro wrestling context at all. But we got it. So any comments on that before we continue?
Last thing I'll wrap up on this particular segment, which, like I said, did impress me, was the fact that we bag on the writers a lot, but this is what happens when a writer does something really, really well. And this is what happens when Bobby Lashley used his years of knowledge for his ring presence. He didn't just stare into the hard cam and cut this promo like he's staring at Goldberg, which I hate. Instead, you notice he swayed, turned to different sides of the audience when he talked. He paced. He showed. It was beyond sympathy and empathy. It's just true ring presence. When people, it's part ring psychology, but it's knowing where your cameras are, knowing how to address your crowd, and making it look like you're talking to them and not just whoever's listening at home, or talking to a wrestler who's not standing there because you're breaking the fourth wall. I loved it. It was great. And it reminds me of like certain scenes of that actors pulled in movies. I'm not going to sidebar on that. I'm just going to say it was great. And the antithesis to that was Sasha's promo when she's flipping her hair and saying stuff and like stops and then gives the punchline. It's like so sitcom written. It was just bad. And it's like you stop and then you continue because you're like giving the viewer at home a chance to chuckle or go, what? Or something. I hated it. And then Ricochet, who really is so good in the ring, shouldn't have to cut promos at all, giving his stupid promo for his King of the Ring qualifier match and throwing a dumb rhyme scheme into it. And I'm like, dude, you're Ricochet. I've seen you do things that a human being wishes they could do, and you just cut like a 1989 Marty Jannetty Rockers kind of promo. I hated it. So tonight with Bobby Lashley, we saw when the writers are focused, or maybe Vince said, this is garbage. This is what I want him to say. I don't know. I'm hoping they put him back in the main event scene. And honestly, if you don't, he could be like an Undertaker, not to that level, but someone who can have main event feuds, just doesn't necessarily always have to have the title around his waist. There's a lot of things you can do with him. Let's just put him in the right direction. But man, I love this promo. Man, I loved it.
Yeah, that is. It reminds you that even though you know this is a work, you can still get pulled in at times, and that pulled me in, and I believed every word that Bobby Lashley said. So credit to them, credit to the writers, credit to everybody that was involved in that. It was as good as you possibly could have expected from Bobby Lashley, and I think it made me actually kind of care about seeing this match, even though the problem is Goldberg is still a part of it. So, all right, well, let's continue into another King of the Ring quarterfinals match of Xavier Woods defeating Ricochet via pinfall after he delivered his elbow drop. And were you surprised of this, of Xavier winning this, or did you think that maybe Ricochet had an opportunity? And I hate to triple layer this, but answer however you want. We had the announcer backstage, the interviewer. I don't know his name, but he was asking Xavier and Kofi. He asked them twice, what happens if you both advance and have to face each other? And they, like school children, gave non-answers or babbled or whatever, again, acting like third graders, although that's an insult to third graders. They were just non-answering, and obviously we don't have to be concerned with that scenario because Kofi Kingston didn't advance, but Xavier Woods defeats Ricochet. Go ahead.
Okay, the flow of this match was really odd. You had a couple high spots, which it doesn't always have to be completely flippy. And I'm not trying to say I need to see these guys jumping off balconies or doing 450s every 5 seconds. It just surprised. It seemed surprisingly 80s style Paul Roma high flyer, like the high crossbody, and I didn't see a monkey flip, but I'm sure one was teased. And then, of course, you get a little spot here, a little high spot there, which kind of draws it back, which makes some of the things that they do in the air a little bit more special when they do hit it. And there was some good spots in the match, but for them being aerials, it's funny, they kept referring to, them being like these aerial tacticians when somebody was in a headlock or a wrist lock, and I'm going, huh? Like, can you get your commentary on board with whatever's happening in the ring? I knew that they're still trying to push this whole New Day to the forefront, and I think that's just because that's the only way that they think they can get Big E over. This is all about Big E. It's not about Xavier or Kofi. I didn't expect either one of them to make it to the finals, and trust me, Xavier's not going to the finals, folks. He's not, and I'm going to get to that just in a second. But the fact is, it's because they want to make it like all, they want to tease like the New Day is going to be triumphant and it's going to be friends versus friends for King of the Ring, and it's must-see TV, and then will all of them stay on triumphant? What? Come on, will it implode the New Day? The New Day has already been split up theoretically, but they just can't get away from each other. So I had a bad feeling Xavier was going to win. Ricochet, he's dwindled in Vince's eyes because, he has talent. Not to say Xavier's not talented, but he's also just, everybody in the New Day is borderline channel changing heat. Not Miz level channel changing, but just bathroom break. Like, I don't want to hear this goofiness. You haven't evolved. You haven't shown me anything. You can do some amazing stuff, but when you act like a fool, and I get it, when you first came out, you're supposed to be religious zealots, and now you changed into the unicorn and everything, but you look like a bunch of fools, and they just can't break away from that. Is Crown Jewel just a celebration of them? And honestly, I just think it's all to put more eyes on Big E, because I really don't think that your casual fan is buying him as a champion. I really don't. And so let's push his friends and let's keep them all together. And the Big E, the New Day's back together. I didn't know they broke up. And so I censored myself there, by the way.
Good for you.
Thank you. I think that's what this is all about. Is like they're really trying to put more spotlight on Big E by keeping those chuckleheads together and keeping a spotlight on them. There's no reason for them to be in this tournament. First of all, if you look at what King of the Ring used to theoretically mean by being somewhere around the level of the Intercontinental title when it was supposed to be all eyes are on these people as the next level, look at that, and there's maybe 2 credible to 3 credible people who are in this tournament, and the rest you go, what? Really? Come on. So I'm going to finish my dissertation. Well, actually, I'm just going to go into it and make it real quick. The fact is, we all know what Finn Balor was called before he was Finn Balor. His real name's Fergal Devitt. He was known as Prince Devitt. Royalty. Shayna Baszler. She's the Queen of Spades. And what do you call Jinder Mahal? What's his nickname?
The modern day Maharaja.
What's a Maharaja?
It's like a god or a king, isn't it? It's like some ruler.
It's a king. You notice those overtones?
Not until you mentioned it.
I just started seeing through it like last night, and I was like, okay, so anybody who has any kind of name that's a tie to royalty in any way, shape, or form are the people that they're going to spotlight. And of course, they're going to spotlight Jinder because they're going to be overseas in supposedly his neck of the woods. Although I didn't think that this was coming from Canada. Oh, did I bust that one out? And it's just. Shayna's probably going to win it because she's the queen, so the queen wins the queen of, the queen's crown, and then you're going to have the Maharaja versus the prince. And now I can see it. He's no longer the prince; he's the king. Because for Jinder to go over in any way is just a crime. Let's just be honest here, and it's going to do zero for the product, just like his forgettable world title reign. It's all you're going to do is hurt other wrestlers who are great in the process. So it's just funny how all these people who have these royalty ties are the people who are coincidentally in there. And it's funny because Sami Zayn isn't even allowed to go over there, is he? So you think, remember last time he wasn't allowed to go over because of his religion and his background, his ethnic background. So obviously he's got to be knocked out of this. If he beats it will definitely, if he beats Finn Balor, that'll be a miracle. But if he does, I don't know how they're going to pull that one off unless they make it like this big story. Well, he can finally go to Saudi Arabia, and he can finally. Who's going to care the way you've made his character so wishy-washy? What's it going to do for him? That means then you probably put Jinder, or you can't put Jinder in that, so it's got to be Xavier. And then if it's Xavier who goes over, we all lose as the viewer.
I sadly could see Xavier winning this. I really could, and then have him and the New Day making a mockery of being a king and doing silly crap every week. I could see it. I'm not saying it's likely, but I can see it. I also, want to say that I know that the King of the Ring winner, I mean, as it's been presented in the last 10 to 15 years, it's a tailor-made heel tournament because other than bragging rights, you're really not winning anything. It doesn't afford you a future opportunity at any championship. You don't get any special privileges, like you can float between brands or anything like that. It's just a made up. You get to pretend to be king for however long you want, and make the fans, or call the fans subjects, and everyone, call yourself royalty, and you get to basically play a child's game for as long as you want. There's really no benefit to winning for a babyface. There's really nothing. There's no tangible benefit for a babyface to win this, which is why it's a perfect heel tournament. Just like Money in the Bank generally is a heel match to win, because you take somebody at their most vulnerable moment to take their championship. Now, again, that doesn't say all the time. Like Big E this year, of course, you do see babyfaces win it, but the general rule of thumb is, especially for King of the Ring, there's nothing other than to use it as a springboard to be egotistical about winning a tournament that really means nothing. It's a glorified, well, actually I shouldn't say glorified. It's a kind of parallel to the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, although the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, I would argue, has even less meaning, because other than just basically a Little League trophy that you get at the end. And I just think that the way they choose who goes into these tournaments, they never explain. They don't bother to explain it. We don't need an explanation. They're just there. What really is going on is, anybody that's not involved in a storyline, this is what you're doing, right? Like anybody that's not involved in something that's ongoing on a weekly basis, you're going to be put here. Or if a storyline for you just ended and you're just kind of floating around, you're going into the tournament. Essentially, that's what this cast of characters are all the misfit toys that WWE doesn't know what to do with at the moment. And again, they won't ever explain how they were chosen, whatever. It's just never explained. And I know people don't care, and that's fine, but I do. I just want at least some kind of explanation. Like you said, do they have some kind of pick from a hat moment? Did they strategically do this? I don't need an explanation specific, a 20-minute explanation for every single person that's in there. Just give us a general statement, but they don't, and they don't care. So just like how the Hurt Business is back together, they don't bother to explain. No, nobody cares. They just figure the fans will figure it out, or no one's going to care. It's just laziness. It's laziness, and it's insulting to fans' intelligence that they think we don't know this stuff. But anyway, go ahead.
To make the King of the Ring matter to you, how's this for giving it a push, but not having it like Money in the Bank, where it means more than an undertitle? How about, if you become King of the Ring, that means you get the number 30 slot at the Royal Rumble, which means you've got a better chance of getting a shot. Which it doesn't mean that you're going to win the whole thing or be the person headline WrestleMania. It just means that you've got that benefit. So you've got something now that you want to win. So you can brag about it. I've got the number 30 slot. So it's a minor accolade that doesn't take away from the Intercontinental U.S. titles, which are supposed to be your big stepping stones to the big one. Of course, they always tout whoever wins the Royal Rumble above all that, and Money in the Bank above that. But it gives you a shot to be that winner. So now you've got something worth fighting for, something worth bragging about, something that says, okay, well, I'm number 30 because I was the king. I was the best wrestler in this tournament, which allows me that benefit. Okay, I can buy that. I think that's viable. And the other thing I had to say about this match real quick, and I wanted your opinion on what I said on the former, was so the note I made was Corey Graves, and I think, honestly, they just sabotaged his commentary just to see if people were paying attention, was that their aerial skills are going toe-to-toe, and this is when Xavier and Ricochet were having a chop contest to the chest.
That was actually said. My brain must have tuned that out.
Their aerial skills are going toe-to-toe, and they were having, he was like, the aerial skills of Xavier and Ricochet are going toe-to-toe, and I would look at the ring, I look at my phone, because I'm watching it, trying not to, upset Candy, and they're chopping each other to the chest. Well, I was like, that's quite an attack.
That is egregious, but at the same time, it doesn't shock me at all, because their main job is to tell stories. They tell stories. They often don't talk about what's going on in the ring. It's almost like we're along for the ride of whatever's in their heads, or really whatever's in Vince's head that he's feeding, Corey Graves and Byron. But that's unfortunate because we should be hearing from them about what's going on in the ring. We should be hearing from them about the maneuvers and the pain and the anguish and the elation that's going on inside the ring. And instead we're hearing about side stories, and then they'll come back to the match and be like, oh, what a maneuver. A lot of times they don't even have the respect to name the moves that are going on. You'll just hear, what a maneuver, what an impact. Well, can you tell me, as an analyst, as a commentator, working for a multinational organization, getting this position, you can't tell me what move I just saw? Like, I know they'll never get back to that because that's too pro wrestling, but that kind of stuff bothers me, that it's a disrespect to what's going on in the ring. How many times do they just talk about, not like more than half the time, about something else going on, or the announcers bickering with one another, or like it's just, I don't know. It takes the focus off. Like, hey, I'm watching the match. Are you guys? I don't know. So
you've got a great point, but what's your thoughts on my idea of King of the Ring?
King of the Ring, I like that. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So quickly, I'll mention that I like that. I think it's reasonable. It is something to strive for, and you could make this an annual tournament instead of just pulling it out of your ass, randomly in an October. So most of the time it's in June. Sometimes, some years they don't even do it. So it's kind of all over the place, and they pull it out when it's convenient, or they got nothing else going on and they're trying to get interest into the product. There's no consistency with this tournament at all. But if there was something on the line other than just, oh, hey, I want a make-believe king's crown, isn't that cool? If there's something tangible for the wrestlers to strive for, like number 30 in the Royal Rumble, yeah, that is it, because then the fans are like, whoa, now we got to really pay attention. But WWE would also have to know in advance that they're going to want to put this person in the Rumble however many months away that Rumble is. Which is why I'm saying if they do this in June every year, that's 6 months away that they're going to have to figure out the plans for this person, and maybe they don't want to book out that far. So maybe they do the tournament later in the year. But I like that. It's something to actually strive for other than just the predictable walk around with a scepter for however many months, call people subjects, and pretend you're a king. So yes.
Okay, cool.
All right, let's get to Omos. Don't care how you pronounce it. I heard both pronunciations on Raw. Both. WWE doesn't even know how to pronounce it. So, I mean, can we please, WWE, can we land on a pronunciation? I think we have it, and then they switch it up where I think we had Randy pronounce it differently than Riddle, and AJ pronounced it different than Randy. It was all over the place. I'm just going to go up to, like, somebody needs to go up to him and be like, hey, bro, how do you pronounce your name? Can we settle this? Nobody knows. So it's either Omos, both apparently are correct. I guess English language, it should be Omos because it's Omos, but whatever. So Omos defeats Riddle via pinfall, like pretty dominantly. I mean, this was a squash match. And we had the choke slam, of course, from Omos. And then he continues to dish out more punishment. Randy Orton's music hits. And then we thought Randy was going to make the save and maybe hit an RKO from behind. And AJ turned around, but nobody was there. And then we had Omos go to the outside of the ring, waiting for Orton to pop through the crowd. And then out of nowhere, Randy Orton ends up sneaking up again on AJ. I didn't see where he came through, but apparently maybe from the side instead of from directly from the back of the arena. Who knows? But we got another RKO on AJ. And Riddle and AJ, or rather Riddle and Orton, scurry up the ramp, and Omos is seething once again in the ring. It was like a replay of last week.
Here's my thing about Omos. They're doing a really, really good job of protecting him. Of course, the 10-minute banter between Matt Riddle and AJ and Omos is like 10 minutes I'll never get back in my life. That was just brutally scripted, brutally slow-mo. Like, let's just get on with it. Now, I know Omos is supposed to be like some 7-foot tough guy, whatever. Like I've said a million times, Matt Riddle's actually won a lot of UFC fights. So I kind of feel like you're squashing the wrong guy, but they don't know what to do with Matt Riddle because he's brought it upon himself. Everybody knows he was, a big time stoner, and now they just make it a way of life with his gimmick. And it's really, I just don't understand how you take a monster and just tune it down into garbage. But hey, you could ask Brodus Clay about that.
Funkasaurus.
With this being said,
Yep.
yeah, exactly. How did you screw that one up?
Yeah.
So here's my thing. Almost as well protected. I'm not taking that away from him. Because while he's very limited in what he does, he's making it work. And I think a lot of that's that player coach and AJ. I think a lot of that's just saying, okay, wait for your cues, wait for this, wait for that. That's why they're together. I still think that's the biggest thing is AJ's teaching him that ring presence. It's not fair to him that he had to be thrown into the limelight this fast. It's like a Dana Brooke thing, except Dana had more wrestling experience than Almost did. What did he get? To be the bodyguard of Raw Underground, let's try to forget that, and the Super Ninja and all that stuff. We never saw him in NXT, and if we did, someone please tell me. Zach, I'm listening, please, because I never saw him down there. So it's almost like a Braun Strowman effect, except I think you'd agree, comparatively, Braun Strowman was a phenomenal learner. He came a long way in a very short period of time. Sure, he was scripted. Sure, they put him in situations where he was dominant, but when he had somebody to go against like an Apollo Crews or Sami Zayn, you saw some good matches out of him, and he evolved. He evolved very, very fast. A lot faster than guys his size usually do. Also working all those shows with Big Show and Kane, who were the seasoned big men of big men. I mean, he didn't get to work Undertaker, but hey, you got to work Kane, even if it was old Kane. That's somebody who's going to walk you in the back and say, we're about the same height, we're about the same build, this is what you do. Almost doesn't have that. I don't know anybody of that stature who can be that coach. So AJ is, at his unique, smaller size, the perfect heat magnet and the perfect coach. So you know what? If these are the kind of matches we're going to get out of him for a while, let's just keep doing it until we can see this guy actually do something in the ring. So we got to count our blessings that they're not trying to have him wrestle a 5, 6, 7 minute match against, a great mat tactician who's going to expose him and make him look stupid. There might be something under there. Now, mind you, I don't want another unstoppable beast, because then they usually get stopped by whoever the next John Cena role is. You can ask Rusev about that. You can ask Ryback about that. You can ask anybody who's just this unstoppable, all of a sudden heel monster. It's just what happens. If you're going to protect him, let's protect him until he can wrestle. I'm not looking for Steve Regal versus, Dean Malenko, but I'm looking for something that entertains me out of a big man. So, we got what we had. Matt Riddle sold it well. I just wish he wasn't the cannon fodder. Once again, like I say, give Randy a break. Randy's old. Randy's tired. Give the guy some time off. I know they don't know what they'd do without Randy now that John Cena's gone forever. They don't know what they'll do. You'll move on. Now you're bringing Edge into the fold, okay? There's only so long that these guys who are older, they need a break. Edge gets his breaks. Randy doesn't. Let AJ be the mouthpiece to push Omos in a different direction to squash whoever's trying out from NXT just to make him look good. Give him these quick matches and then dark match him at the end of the night against some people to see how he's looking or for your main event tapings. But I honestly was strangely comfortable with this segment because it furthers the storyline. We're seeing somebody get protected, and hopefully there's something at the end of the rainbow for him. I'm honestly, this has me very intrigued, and I want to see where it goes. And you've got Matt Riddle, who can chain wrestle and can do submission style really well because he knows it. You have Randy, who the guy needs a break, but he's going to give you something in the ring. He's going to tell a story. And you've got AJ, who's the great player coach. So we know what this is all about and who it's all about. So I want to see the payoff. I want to see if we're actually biting our nails and sitting on the edge of our seat, hopefully, for something that's great, or if this is going to blow up and be another Lars Sullivan. Oh! Sorry, I had to.
Oh, Lars Sullivan. Yeah. Good Lord. Well, Omos, whatever, is a guy they clearly are looking towards for big plans. They have big plans for him, and there's no question. With all the airtime he's gotten, the exposure he's gotten, the style of matches of squashing Riddle, who is you talk about an otherworldly athlete. This guy is just Riddle is a machine. Like, people, I know he's a goofy character on TV, but he is an absolute machine. If you've watched even 5 minutes of a match that he's had, you know how good of a worker he is. And so for Omos to squash him the way he did was a little striking. I wasn't angry about it. I was just like, whoa, that really tells you where they're going to place Omos in the next 6 to 12 months. And, again, they also haven't even had Omos take a finish, much less lose a match or be taken off his feet. I mean, they have really protected Omos to the point of, like, I think it's smart because it makes you want to see somebody just beat him down and somehow level him. I want to see what happens when he takes an RKO. Does he sell it like the Fiend? Does he actually stay down? Or what happens, right? I want to see what happens to Omos when he gets taken off his feet. And it could happen at Crown Jewel. I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't think Omos is going to lose a match for quite some time. At least in a one-on-one environment. In tag teams, obviously he's already lost in a tag team environment, but I'm talking about in a one-on-one capacity. So Omos right now is a star in the making, and he's got the ring presence. You talk about a presence you can't teach in any class. He has it. He's got the look. He's decently athletic for the size that he is. And I look forward to seeing him every single week. I really do. I don't think he's just a flash in the pan. Ooh, he's so, you're looking at him and you're excited because of how big he is. He's got something extra. And I think WWE recognizes that too. And AJ, there's no better teacher than AJ with all the decades of experience he has to help guide Omos through his career, or at least through his early career. So, yeah, I enjoyed this. I really did. I know I just said that it was a duplicate of last week, but in a way, it really wasn't, other than the RKO, because of the fact that Omos actually, had a match this week, and he actually did perform a few moves. So, yeah.
You know what his whole protection reminds me of? Some people say Braun Strowman, but Braun Strowman exploded onto the scene because they kept his wrestling off NXT and off of any kind of television until he came in with that black sheep mask, removed it, and everybody's going, who's he? But no, honestly, it reminds me of the build to Bill Goldberg, excuse me. In his first match, beats Hugh Morrison, everybody's going, who's this guy? And then every time they tried to interview him for that first few months, remember, he wouldn't do an interview. Yep. He'd just snort, look at the guy, and then turn around. And so all of us were going, who is this guy? Why is he doing this? Why is he destroying everybody? We wanted him to talk. We wanted to figure out what was going on with him. At least I do. And I did. I think I was like 22 at the time, 21 maybe. And I was going, who is this guy? What's going on with this? I'm not saying, okay, Goldberg's build was definitely not what Omos's build is. But by having him protected that way, it makes me want to see what his first real match is going to be. Is he going to take a move and it's going to look good, or is it going to be sloppy and this was all for nothing? Is this going to be a failed experiment, or is this going to turn out to be something really interesting that I'm going to say, wow, like the time spent protecting him was well worth it? That's where I am with this. This is intriguing to me. So this is better than just the giant man push for, like I said, Lars Sullivan, or the giant man push for Rusev. I just come out and I put everybody in the accolade, and they, I make them pass out because John Cena's down the road to, Mr. USA, or Ryback. I'm such a dominant face, but I keep hurting everybody. They'll turn me heel and I can't win a match, and I'll just be, fodder. What's going to happen with this? So I'm hoping with a teacher like AJ, and with working with somebody who has great ring psychology like Randy Orton, he has some good teachers, and with Matt Riddle being a great submission wrestler and a great chain wrestler, you have three solid people with you. I think at Crown Jewel, if anything, if there's a come away from this and we actually see some wrestling from him, either they're so good at protecting him, or maybe they were all teaching him too, which would be really cool. So that's where I'm really intrigued with this one. I want to see it.
Yeah, Omos has definitely got a great cast of a great supporting cast, I should say, to help him progress, and it's showing. It's showing on a weekly basis. So I'm with you. I'm on the ride for this one. I want to see what they do. I think it's a slow burn, and I love slow burns. I'm all about the slow burn, honestly. So, all right, let's continue on here. A few more things that happen on Raw. I don't have a ton more to say here. I mean, Austin Theory defeats Jeff Hardy via pinfall with a schoolboy pin. Austin Theory is now the fanboy selfie taking obnoxious heel. I guess that's
Tyler Breeze.
Yeah, he's Tyler Breeze without the feathers and the selfie stick, I guess. Yeah. I don't have much to say about it other than I'm looking forward to Jeff Hardy going to SmackDown and showing us his alter ego. Again, we're all speculating it's what they showed in TNA, and it could be so, or some modified version of it. Do you have anything to comment on Austin Theory and Jeff Hardy?
Real quick, Jeff Hardy did use the Willow of the Wisp character a couple times in WWE years ago. They just did their best to make us forget it. But yes, he actually has used that a couple times. In fact, I think, and I could be corrected by anybody who's more of a historian than me, he used it when he was still young, when they wore those goofy pants. He came out as that character to wrestle twice on a show, once as Jeff Hardy, once as Willow. I'll be fine with it when he brings it out, but it's not like it's something we haven't seen before. It was used on WWE property. As far as Austin Theory goes, this guy is incredibly talented. At least they're using him. But for them to say it's his first win on Raw, I believe he's had at least a win in tag team. If people forgot already, he was helping carry the company with Andrade and Humberto and Angel Garza as far as when COVID happened and no one wanted to wrestle. So this guy deserves something. He deserves something more than a retread of the Tyler Breeze gimmick. At least they're doing something with him, but let's upgrade it a bit and change it. I rather if he's always getting like selfies that he's gonna put up when someone's knocked out, and that's part of his like Titantron intro, I can buy that. Like a kind of look what I can do to you, and I'll make you part of my intro, like kind of laughing at them. It's something more for me to sink my teeth into, and I'll work with that. But I just don't want him to be Tyler Breeze 2.0. Aside from that, with the 24/7 jobbers coming in there, why? That's the best I'm going to say without using an explicative. That thing just needs to go away. It's sad that I don't even remember the Salmonier guy's name. Reginald. That guy has a paycheck, and Bray Wyatt was let go. I just want you people to think about that, okay? Drew Gulak, who is a great, everything he did involve, and he'll never be seen. And he had that mini push with Daniel Bryan, and his career is just in the dumper now because of that. That 24/7 needs to go. It just needs to go off a cliff, and everybody who's chasing it needs to follow and just stay there. Or, better yet, I'm sure there's some kind of West Coast promotion that's hiring every reject, and I'm not talking about AEW. I'm talking about like some low-life company. Just get rid of these guys. Maybe save for Drew Gulak because he does have talent. You just need to reinvent him and help him. The roll-up, just get rid of it. Aside from that, I'm just breezing over that. Jeff Hardy's probably going to do his best to put people over at this point. Honestly, we all know that he's probably one more law infraction away from having walking papers for life. So instead of that, I think that he could have a great career in the Performance Center and become a backstage producer and try to actually show some of these younger high flyers and some of these daredevils how not to break their necks and end up, I don't want to say like Edge and Christian, but let's be honest. At least he elongated his career a little bit more because he did some stuff. And evolution keeps you relevant. So even though I know I've seen Willow before in WWE, a lot of people haven't. And having the same look and the same old thing for over 15 years, this is going to be good for him. It's going to be a good move. Even if he's counting ring lights and putting young talent over, he's going to have a great future behind the scenes. So, this is going to be a positive move. I'm ready for him to make it.
Me too. I really can't wait to see what Jeff Hardy brings at the tail end of his career here. At this point, you got nothing left to lose. Jeff Hardy has nothing left to lose. WWE has nothing left to lose. It's just experimenting with, hey, Jeff, what do you want to do before you end your career? Like that's probably the way they approached it. What do you want to do? Is there anything different? Do you want to turn heel? Do you want to show a different side of yourself, character-wise? I mean, this is kind of just playtime for Jeff. He's already a proven man. He's a Hall of Famer. There's nothing left to do for his career. They're not going to focus around him as WWE champion. That's long come and gone for those days. So, yeah.
Now, if you can give back at this point, I think he's in the perfect place. And like I said, the biggest thing is keeping these young guys like Ricochet healthy. The Austin Theories of the world, a guy who, another person who, had they not let walk, would be in this conversation is Buddy Murphy. That guy could do anything in a ring. And so, him to be the person to say, okay, you want to wrestle this hardcore match, we'll do it once a year. And this is the way to take the proper spots, and don't bite off more than you can chew. And yeah, I dove off this 30-foot ladder. I was lucky. Look at Edge and Christian. Look at how long they had to retire. And, he's that guy to say, okay, you're using too many flips in a match. Okay, you used 2 suicide dives the last time. Let's cut it down to none for a month. He's the right guy to do that kind of thing.
Agreed. Yeah, it's not just in ring that he can contribute, but outside the ring and his knowledge, no doubt. And they recognize that. I'm sure Jeff recognizes that. It's just it's playtime for Jeff, and it's give back time. And I'm sure he'll, even after his in-ring career is over, I think he'd be an asset backstage as long as he keeps himself sober, continues to keep himself sober. I think he'd be a great asset. So, all right, let's continue on here. A couple more things, and then we'll close it out. Is King of the Ring, another King of the Ring quarterfinal. We touched on it, I think, briefly, but I didn't know if you had anything else to add about Jinder Mahal defeating Kofi Kingston after hitting the Colossus. It was a clean victory. They say that, Kingston was distracted by Veer attacking Woods on the outside of the ring. Nonsense. That was a clean victory. It just, because Kofi was coming off the top rope and attempting apparently a hammer slam or something. And he got caught in the Colossus and he lost cleanly. So they're trying to, in the description of this match, they're trying to not give Kofi, or rather not give Jinder all the credit, but he should, because this really wasn't a heel victory like the typical, low blow behind the ref's back or foreign object or whatever, pulling the tights on the ropes. None of that. It was a clean victory. But did you have anything else you wanted to add to this victory for Jinder Mahal?
First of all, I still don't see how Jinder's still employed. I think it has to do a lot with this going overseas to Crown Jewel every year. The guy's Canadian, guys. He's Canadian. All right, here I go on this. Did you see how many knee lifts that Jinder did in this match? You want to talk about contradiction of styles. It was a complete oxymoronic match as far as Kofi's supposed to be Mr. High Flyer, somewhat technical, and Jinder's he's Mr. 80s wrestler. I mean, every once in a while he'll pull out something that I go, oh, not bad, but most of the time you could watch this match and then you could go back and watch like a Hacksaw Jim Duggan match and you get almost the same product. You really do. And the fact is he won this fair and square. I agree with you. He won this match fair and square. And they're going to use something like the weight advantage, the muscularity, and everything else. It's the fact that, it's like I said, the royalty name and going in there, the writing was on the wall. What was up with that botched, weird frog splash to the back of Jinder? What?
Yeah.
That I think that's just a slip on the ropes kind of thing. Like, oh, screw it, we just got to make the most of it now. But like professionals, they tried to pull it out the best they could. So I can't really bag on them because anything can happen in there. It's just like a game of football. There's fumbles. They call it a fumble for a reason. So at least they made up for it as fast as possible. But to tout Jinder as this big thing, he's one of those guys that surprises me. He never got his walking papers. I still pick him to go to the finals in this thing. It's going to be him and Finn. I'm almost positive, and it's going to come down to, I think Finn will get the king. Which, if they make him go with the whole gimmick, you're just setting the guy's career back, and if he loses, you're setting his career back even more. And I think that's part of the reason that Sami Zayn's in that tournament. There's no, he just can't do it. It's against their standards. He wasn't allowed last, whatever. This match, I'm trying to look at my notes here if there's anything else. Not really. Just surprisingly, the pace was a mid pace. I wasn't expecting Jinder to keep up with Kofi as far as aerial and technical, and Kofi did his best for selling, I think, I don't know how many knee lifts. I mean, the only person who uses knee lifts that much is Triple H, and it was like 5 Triple H matches worth of knee lifts. So it was kind of limping through a bathroom break. We got through it, and just setting up brackets for what's going to happen on Friday, and we just try to get a better snapshot. So that's where I was with that one.
Yeah, no, I mean it was actually a bit of a surprising win for me because Jinder has been defined down once again after Drew McIntyre beat him pretty soundly. He went back into oblivion, and now he's actually rebounded a bit by beating Kofi Kingston. Yeah, it was, I would have liked to have seen what they did with Kofi versus Xavier next week. Obviously, we will not see that, but so yeah, it's fine. Whatever. I mean, Jinder Mahal wins, and he'll get cheered in Saudi Arabia until they realize, like you said, that he's not from Saudi Arabia or anywhere overseas. But hey, yeah, let's not pull back the curtain too much. So, all right. We have, let's see here. I know you want to talk about dewdrops. That'll be our, at least in my notes here, my final thing. But Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander defeat Mustafa again. I've heard it both. And Mansoor via pinfall after Alexander hit Ali with a Michinoku driver, and then after the match, Ali shoved Mansoor and said he's sick of losing. What do you think?
It just comes down to the fact that Mansoor is undefeated in Crown Jewel and whatever. What was the other one that they had over there? The World's...
The Greatest Royal Rumble?
Titus
World Slide, yeah.
Oh, dear. Anyway, the point is, he's undefeated over there. This is going to be your curtain jerker for Crown Jewel because there's no real heat going into it. It's minimal build. And the fact that Mansoor has always been undefeated on that card or one of those cards. And of course, with Mustafa Ali, he was supposed to get the mega push of going into WrestleMania with the Daniel Bryan thing, and instead it went to Kofi. Well, it's kind of funny how all this is coming full circle. Wow. This one's for the hometown crowd, so to speak. So these guys are of Middle Eastern descent. It makes sense. So we're going to spotlight them. And both of them can do some really talented things in the ring. What I noticed, though, what's interesting is Mansoor during his promo backstage, he looked pretty ripped and pretty jacked. But when he was in the ring, he looked like one of the Mulkey brothers from the old NWA Saturday Night 605 slot. There you go. There's another old school reference. It was like, what happened to his build? It looks like a bag of milk. But these guys are both really talented. I just see that Mustafa Ali is out for a lot of retribution.
Oh, zing. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, man. Did you plan that one?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Right.
You're here all week, right? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's going to be that. Yeah, literally. No, what I think is that's going to be your going into the hometown crowd with two Middle Eastern descent wrestlers. I think that if both speak Arabic, so on and so forth, that they're going to address the crowd that way, probably in the dark times before the before the cameras go on, or maybe after whoever wins or whoever loses. You might have that personal connection, which I'm pretty sure Mansoor can. And of course, with his reputation, to him, he's an incumbent over there because they always see him win. So to the Crown Jewel crowd, they've got their hometown guy, their John Cena, so to speak, coming home, and now he's going against somebody where it's not going to hurt the company. Whoever else is left on the roster, it's not going to hurt the company by someone taking a loss if it's going to be Mustafa Ali. So it's going to create some, I think, for them, legitimate heat that is relatable to the hometown crowd.
Yep.
So that's where that whole thing was. So that's what I got out of it. But of course, I love the Hurt Business. I'm a huge Cedric Alexander fan, and I don't care if Shelton Benjamin's my age or older. The guy can still get it done. And that's there should not be a magic governing number on your age where they say you can't do it anymore, because they don't do it to Randy, they didn't do it to John, they don't do it to Brock. So if someone's in their 40s, and especially with the talent and skill set of Shelton Benjamin, you just don't govern it. There's things that you can do with somebody instead of pushing him down to main event and having him lose in garbage matches to the Street Profits. It's just, that's where I am with it. So hopefully there's some momentum on the back half of that with the Hurt Business, and they get back together with Bobby Lashley. I was kind of shocked that they referred to them as the Hurt Business, but they didn't accompany Bobby Lashley to the ring. That one kind of got me in the mind a little bit, but we'll see if they they just keep the name, and Bobby Lashley is just the Almighty with MVP. Curious to see where that one goes, but let's wrap our minds around that one. Dewdrop.
Yeah, what'd you think?
All I can say is that my life is pretty plain. Okay, so yeah, definitely she's the little B girl all grown up. This is supposed to be a feel-good story, but of course destroyed. Once again, you're talking about how quick are these matches?
Yeah.
Why was I supposed to care about this again? She's become a false hope running farce, and that's sad. Like I said, Dana Brooke is out of the tournament, but we got Dewdrop acting like a fool, and I just want to... This is another one where I'm kind of curious to see where it's going. I am really curious to see where it's going. My up is Shayna Baszler winning because I think that down the road, like I said, that whole carrot dangling thing is going to be amazing. I don't see anything with the whole mini Dewdrop push, let alone her getting airtime, let alone... What do you see? What did you see in this segment? What grasped you, or did you just see this as a chance to go get a banana out of the fridge and have a snack?
There was that, but also, yeah, the best part of this was seeing the replay of having Eva Marie get her arm snapped. I think that happened right before this match, because I think Eva Marie was a absolute detriment to the women's division as a whole. And I don't mean disrespect to her as a person, just as a character. She's very Divas Era-esque and does not belong in the current product. She just doesn't. But anyway, Dewdrop beating Natalya after rolling her up. I mean, again, got to have the roll up. But we also had the roll up with Austin Theory and Jeff Hardy. I think there was another match. So again, I don't like the roll up finishes, especially when you have women the size of Dewdrop doing roll ups. I mean, you can't win with a splash. Like, like you said, this isn't Dean Malenko and William Regal. This is a much different body type. Although you notice they never, ever, 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 ever point out her body type. Ever. No, they don't. Even though that is actually what makes her stand out, and that's actually what helps her in this division, is the fact that she does not look like the rest of the women. That's what helps Nia Jax. And they never bring it up because they can't, because I think they feel there's no safe way to bring it up and not have some kind of political backlash, or the PC mob or the Twitter mob just try to cancel them for, I don't know, belittling women or shaming women's bodies or whatever nonsense of the day that they'll come up with. So they're fearful of that. So they just don't even acknowledge the fact of what actually is an asset, no pun intended, to Dewdrop. I mean, really, like that, her size is an asset, and I don't care. She's overweight. Like, I'll say it. She's overweight, but I don't care. And I think that's an asset to her, because not only does it make her stand out, it makes her matches different. She doesn't do the same moves that every other woman who's 120 pounds, 130 pounds, lean as can be, can do. And that's a good thing. I want variety in my product. I don't want everyone wrestling the exact same way with the same style. So I went off a little bit on the tangent there, but I think Dewdrop defeating Natalya is exactly what it was expected. I wasn't shocked by the outcome, given where they have placed Natalya in this veteran but like a habitual loser way. It's weird. Like, she's respected but also constantly loses outside of the women's tag team belts. So that's what I thought.
It makes, I mean, because she's versatile and can do anything, and basically you can plug her into any program. So that's kind of like that. That's why I think she's always in these situations and always has to count the ring lights in one way or another. They kind of see her as like the Big Show. She can go face, she can go heel, and whenever there's a problem, she's so incredibly reliable. We can just plug her.
Oh yeah, in. Yep, absolutely.
So a couple quick things I want to brush over, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
From some notes from Raw. Okay. And some notes from the week. First of all, I passed it on to you. Did we find out if there's any legitimacy to the so-called Alberto Del Rio saying that he's getting signed by WWE again, or is that just hack news? Do you know anything more about that? I have
not seen anything on this until you showed me, and I'm like, this is if there was any validity to that, that's bad for WWE. That is, I mean, that's another PR nightmare waiting to happen. This guy has a recorded history of temper issues, He's just a mess of a person, from what I understand.
Yeah.
But no, like I get it. Like Alberto Del Rio, if there was any credibility to that, has certain benefits to bringing him there. Name value, he's decent in the ring, although he's aging. He's got a good look for a heel. There are some things that he brings to the table, but man, you are, especially in today's world, you don't want a PR risk, a high risk like that, waiting in the back for someone to just have him piss him off one day, and he ends up doing something that gets into the news, and before you know it, WWE is under fire. So I hope there's no validity to that.
It's a ticking time bomb.
Yep.
Like I said, after my nephew sent that to me, which I sent to you, and we talked about, I've seen it only on like one or two other smaller wrestling news sites, and a couple people have mentioned it on Twitter. And so I don't know what the validity is to it, and if anybody out there knows the validity to it, please hit one of us up on Twitter and let us know if we can find a link or a connection to something that's a little bit more tangible than just a screenshot. Because if this is happening, wow, they're really grasping at straws. The other thing is, how much spotlight are they going to put on this so-called drafting of Gable Steveson to Raw? First of all, the guy hasn't wrestled one professional wrestling match. He doesn't know anything about professional wrestling. I'm not taking away what he did in the Olympics. That's not what this is about. But what I'm saying is, you can love lightning striking twice. They also said Kurt Angle took to professional wrestling and was on televised matches in 6 months. Okay? Now, mind you, I know he spent time in Memphis. I know that for a fact. And I know he spent time in ECW, which was mostly from a spectator's point of view and commentary until the whole Raven crucifixion angle. If you people don't know it, just look it up. It was supposed to be building heat to work with Taz, so when Taz was eventually signed by WWE, it was going to be more about Taz, but unfortunately, Angle turned out to be the way superior worker, and we all know how that turned out. Long story short is the fact that there's only one Kurt Angle in the world, okay? They tried it with Jake Hager, Jack Swagger, which is one of the dumbest names ever, and how did that work out? You carbon copied the guy, and nowhere near the skill set. Hager's okay at best, but the fact is he's no Kurt Angle. He couldn't electrify. He couldn't tell a story. He just went through his moves. He had some really lame attempts at invigorating with We the People. That was dumb. That was just garbage. That was, as the British would say, that's pants. And if you don't know what that means, look it up, folks. And so now we've got Gable Steveson, who's never wrestled a match, maybe just reported to the Performance Center. With somebody as so-called as big as he is, do you think you'll ever see him on NXT? No. He's going to be another one of these so-called protected stars. The fact is, when they come down to it, is he going to be ready? Why are we hyping a guy and drafting a guy who's never set foot in a ring? It's just so stupid. If you're gonna do this, everybody knows he's signed behind the scenes. You don't advertise it. You just train him in secret, train him in private. It's one of those things where when they used to have the working agreement with Carlos Colon's WWC, you put him in front of a live crowd in Puerto Rico. No one sees it up here in North America. No one does. That's why they used to love like the USWA in Memphis and things like that. So the thing is, what's going to happen to this guy? He's going to have more pressure on him than anybody in many, many years. I don't know anybody who's had the pressure that he's going to have on him. And for everybody to expect him to become like the next Kurt Angle, first of all, when Kurt Angle had his first match, they hyped him as a gold medalist. I didn't care. I didn't want to see him in my ring. I was one of those people booing him. Because typically that gimmick has never worked. You looked at it with the pug Alex Porto. It worked with the Steiners, but they were collegiate. They weren't supposed to be Olympic wrestlers. It was something like this whole legit guy, which that's another kayfabe breaker, coming in. And the Angle Slam wasn't that impressive for finishers at the time when you had the Stone Cold Stunner and the Rock Bottom, so on and so forth. And yet everything he did, he just kept getting better and better in the ring. And every time he wrestled, Kurt Angle got better. We don't know if Gable Stevenson's even going to be mediocre the first time he hits the ring. And in this world of scripted stuff, we don't know how well it's going to go over. People forget that when Kurt Angle wrestled his first match and everybody booed him, it's because they didn't want to see him in the ring because they knew he was going to get some mega push as an amateur wrestler. And when he said, "Don't boo me, I'm an Olympic champion," that was legit. That was legit. And then they turned it into comedic gold. And that's another thing that a lot of wrestlers don't come back from. And instead, Kurt Angle turned it into comedic gold, into one of the most intense, crazy wrestling characters ever. And eventually got to be the man to make Steve Austin tap out. So Gable Steveson has to live up to that? Shh. Man.
Gable Steveson, and it was mispronounced on Raw last week. I think they said Gable Stevenson. It's Steveson.
Yeah, Steveson.
Yeah, Steveson. So he certainly has some big shoes to fill, and I don't think it's fair to compare him to Kurt Angle, or at least you can't have that expectation. I understand he won Olympic gold. That in of itself is insanely hard to do. You have to dedicate every waking moment, every conscious moment of your life to that craft, to becoming an Olympic champion of anything. So, credit to him, certainly. And that shows his credibility right off the bat. But translating to WWE does not always happen that quickly. And we all look at Kurt Angle as the number one example of how quickly he caught on, how fast he was able to adapt to the product and understand the in-ring psychology, understand how things work. I mean, he was lightning speed. It may not ever be duplicated again. So we're all going to look to Kurt Angle as the mold, but I don't think that's a fair assessment. I don't. But I mean, I'm interested to see what they do with him. He'll be protected as hell because Olympic gold medal winning athletes do not come along that often in WWE. It's a very rare thing. So I think they believe they have something on their hands, and he will be protected as hell. You're damn right.
The only thing I could see is to keep his name out there and keep him relevant, they probably start him in the commentary booth so he gets used to being scripted and people get used to hearing him talk. So when he cuts a promo, it'll become more natural because you're taking somebody way out of their element. I mean, essentially acting is a huge part of professional wrestling. And okay, we were impressed by Bobby Lashley's promo, but you put it against your average Kurt Angle promo and you just go, okay, he's no Kurt Angle. I just look at, like you said, huge shoes to fill. It's an unfair comparison. And the fact is, that's what they're thinking. I know for a fact they think we got our next Kurt Angle. Man, how many times did you think that you had your next Undertaker? The best you got was Kane, and Kane was great. He was damn good. He was insanely good. In fact, his career would have been better if you never would have damn near killed his career with the Isaac Yankem and all that stuff before that. If you brought in Kane years before that, we could have had even more. But there hasn't been the next Stone Cold. They tried to reinvent Kevin Owens in that vein. You can't do it in a PG era. And you can't take someone who learned the business in 6 months and learned faster than anybody else, who had a flair for it and had just a natural taking to it that just does not happen. And I think, like I said, the best case scenario with that is, I mean, Jake Hager, they even gave him the ankle lock, and it connected. It did not connect with the fans. And of course you had some sheeple out there doing the we the people thing. Well, yeah, 10-year-old kid will do anything. I also saw kids dancing like Fandango. They panned him. The only people who were doing it, those little kids. They weren't in the key demographic. So this guy, man, I feel for him because the pressure's on. And I almost have a bad feeling that if he doesn't produce the way they want, they might just cut him as part of the next round of budget cuts in a year or something like that before he's even had a match. So many intangibles. It's just, this is a rough one for me. And for them to keep mentioning it, it's like, if this guy in his first match does one botch, he's going to get booed, and it's going to be blackballed all over the internet wrestling community. So that's where I am with that whole mention. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. I wonder if the Undertaker's ever going to come back to resurrect Elias so he can have that dream, guitar and a pole match against Rick Boogs. Just doing some fantasy booking, so we can have a WrestleMania moment. But aside from that, there was some really good news this week that The Miz is on Dancing with the Stars, which means he doesn't have to plague or destroy our television sets, so you and I are happy men for a little while. And aside from that, though, I think Shayna and the way they can book her and where she can go down the road is really a highlight gem of this. I think Mansoor and Mustafa Ali was definitely a foregone conclusion going into this pay-per-view, even if it's a largely forgotten pay-per-view. My prediction still not quite knowing the exact. How far away are we from Crown Jewel? Is it this weekend or next?
No, it's a week from this Thursday, so like 9 days.
Okay, so 9 days. So I'm going to make a bold prediction right now before we have Friday. I'm saying Finn Balor wins this whole thing, unless they lifted the ban on Sammy going over there. But it's going to be Finn Balor. If it's Jinder Mahal, we all lose. And Bobby Lashley, I'm definitely seeing destroying Goldberg. I mean, Goldberg's got a reputation for almost destroying the product when he's overseas. And, honestly, I want to see more of Bobby Lashley's promos like he did tonight. That was a very big up for me. And I really hope that they just kind of ease up on Gable Steveson and kind of, do their best to train him and just not kind of throw him to the wolves and expect Kurt Angle. That's what I got for us this week.
Awesome. Well, yeah, that's a great way to close, and I think that we covered everything with Monday Night Raw. I mean, I made sure we talked about things. Sometimes I don't talk about everything that doesn't happen on Hulu, and we covered everything inside and out for this 3-hour show, and of course, building to Crown Jewel. But they did mention even a little bit of Survivor Series in this show, which is not like WWE. Yeah. The Usos mentioned it very quickly, or rather, I think it was Corey Graves, or it was kind of like a weird in passing of, wait, whoever's champion is going to face Roman Reigns, and so that was interesting, and they actually did that before the last pay-per-view. They were looking forward to Crown Jewel. It's just interesting that they're skipping ahead 2 pay-per-views suddenly, and I don't know if that's the best idea, but anyway, yeah, this has been a lot of fun. If there's anything else you'd like to share with our audience, like how they can get in contact with you or any other items.
Sure, you can get in contact with me at 144Captain on Twitter. I love talking wrestling. Just add me or drop me a line. Let me know what you think. Always, I'm still working on some side projects for the site, obviously, and for you and I and Mimi and things like that. If folks have any ideas or anything that they would like me to perhaps cover or talk about, I'd love to know. I'm all ears. And like I said, if you just want to talk some wrestling, I'm always all ears and just ready to talk about something I've watched for a huge chunk of my life, obviously. I also want to thank everybody for listening to my weird history lesson on Chucky and how he just can't get away from the Steiner family. And I just want to say it's always humbling to be on the show because I love the listeners. I love being on the show. It's a great part of my life. It's something I love sharing my opinions and love sharing my observances. And I love the feedback I get. And I just love the relationships I built with the other co-hosts and with the listeners. So thank you, everybody, for listening to me.
Awesome. Well, that's a great way to end the show, and I concur with all of that, and I'm glad that we can provide you and everyone else with a platform to talk about what you may not be able to talk about in your real life. Maybe we don't have wrestling fans that we're seeing on a regular basis in our lives. I know I don't, so it's a nice place to go and just be – it's very cathartic, and you can just talk about wrestling for things that are maybe you're trying to get away from in your real life, and this is just playtime. It's playtime, and we try to make it enjoyable. So, Mr. Wrestling historian, maybe I'll call you that. We are very honored to have you here, and I'm looking forward to I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
Absolutely, you and I both, brother.
All right. Well, you have a good night, brother.
You too.